Chapter 311. Actually, Mu-Ling didn't have the right to represent Medicine City this time. Last time, she'd gone missing while bringing medicine to Medical City to deal with the poison beast. Everyone was waiting for her to show up, but she never showed her face in Medical City. She even caused Medical City to search for her everywhere for the Mu clan. Leaving aside the Wang and Xia clans, even the Mu clan had plenty of complaints. This time, the three clans of Medicine City had come to an agreement that the powerful Mu clan would still have the right to represent Medicine City at the banquet. Mu Yingdong and Han Yunxi's relationship had been so unpleasant that he didn't want to see them for a while. Originally, he wanted the eldest young master of the Mu clan, Mu Lingyun, to attend the banquet, but Mu Ling refused to leave the capital and insisted on attending instead. In the end, Mu Yingdong had no choice but to compromise. It wasn't appropriate for a little girl to represent Medicine City at a national banquet, but Mu Ling's talents in medicine were well known throughout Cloud Realm continent. Her status as a genius pharmacist was still acceptable at such a grand occasion. Mu Yingdong personally gave Mu Ling his gift and told her to take good care of it. She had to say a few words of congratulations before sending it out at the banquet. The three great clans of Medicine City had agreed on the gift together. It was a life-saving pill from the medicine forest. Although it was called a medicinal pill, it wasn't refined, but grown from medicinal trees. Each tree would produce a single life-saving pill every 30 years. It could protect a person's heart and vital energy when their life was in danger and buy time for doctors to treat them. Such a grand gift was both a show of sincerity and faith for Medicine City, and a sign of good relations with the Mu clan. Mu Yingdong was secretly colluding with Jun Yixia, but on the surface, he wanted to get on good terms with Emperor Tianhui. After Han Yunxi and Long Feiyi tricked him, he stood on Emperor Tianhui's side. Seeing Mu Ling stand up, the vexed Empress Dowager finally pulled herself together. She knew that the relationship between Medicine City and Tianning wasn't bad. She also knew that Medicine City's congratulatory gift would definitely be stunning. The foreign guests all maintained a neutral stance and sent gifts as usual. They wouldn't interfere with Tianning's internal strife. This was especially true for a power as complex as Medicine City. A single representative wouldn't be able to decide Medicine City's stance. The Empress Dowager was very confident that Mu Linger would give her a big gift. She finally had some expectations. Emperor Tianhui grew self-confident as well. He refused to believe that Long Feiyi could even rope in foreign powers. He wanted Long Feiyi to know that he was the true master of Tianning. Naturally, the foreign guests would only recognize him. Previously, a few foreign guests had sent gifts, but their influence couldn't compare to Medicine City's. Now that Medicine City's people had stood up, he planned to show off to Long Feiyi. As a matter of fact, Mu Ling hadn't even revealed her identity before Emperor Tianhui spoke up first. Is this the Mu clan's famous genius pharmacist, Miss Ling? Any other representative would be overwhelmed by the favor, but Mu Ling remained calm. Exactly so. Why didn't the Mu clan head come with you? Emperor Tianhui had long known that Mu Yingdong wasn't coming, so he brought it up on purpose for Long Feiyi to hear. Medicine City's strength was deep and solid. They weren't just any allies. My father isn't feeling well, so I came as his representative, Mu Ling said, before hastily adding, and as Medicine City's representative. Chu Qingge felt uncomfortable all over at the words. She couldn't even sit comfortably in her chair, so she clenched her fists and pounded them on the table. Still, she had to admit that she couldn't compare to this damned girl in terms of status. Was it because Big Brother didn't want to offend Medicine City that he didn't show up after saving me at the inn? She'd asked him a few times, but all she got in return was rolling her eyes. Chu Qingge looked towards Han Yunxi, trying to figure out the relationship between Mu Ling and Han Yunxi. The two of them weren't friendly at all, but Han Yunxi had clearly saved Mu Ling at that day. Han Yunxi was looking quietly at Mu Ling, her gaze flickering between light and dark. It was both heavy and complicated. Long Fei Yi didn't pay much attention to her side. Sen Zhen's regards to your father's well-being, Emperor Tianhui said seriously. All right, Mu Ling nodded before looking towards the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager had a kind smile on her face, but her heart was already blooming with joy. She was guessing what kind of gift Medicine City would give her. It had to be some sort of medicine, but it was hard to guess what it was. Actually, it wasn't just the Empress Dowager who was guessing. Everyone else present was guessing as well. Medicine City's gifts had always been extraordinary. Under the gazes of the crowd, Mu Ling walked out of her seat. When she passed by Han Yunxi, she purposely shot her a provocative glance. Han Yunxi allowed her to do as she pleased without batting an eyelid. Mu Ling walked in front of the Empress Dowager and made a simple bow. Mu Ling greets Tianning's Empress Dowager. Rise, rise. The Empress Dowager was so moved that she couldn't hide it. Her face was wreathed in a spring breeze. Mu Ling made another bow, this time with a grand bow. Ling represents the Mu clan and Medicine City to congratulate Tianning's Empress Dowager. May the sun and moon be bright, the pines and cranes be everlasting. May your happiness last forever, and your future be boundless. May your smile bloom from your mouth and your family live forever. Her loud voice filled the silent hall with congratulatory words. Both the Empress Dowager and Emperor Tianhui were very satisfied. Good, good, good. This child's mouth is so sweet. The Empress Dowager couldn't stop grinning as she looked towards Emperor Tianhui. Emperor Tianhui grinned and nodded in agreement. Esteemed Empress Dowager praises me too much, Mu Ling said modestly. See, you're still being modest, the Empress Dowager said with a smile. Hurry and rise. Mu Ling immediately rose, then turned to walk towards her seat and sit down. And then, there was no congratulatory gift. What did Medicine City mean by this? Just like that, the Empress Dowager's smile froze. Her eyes stared straight ahead, her expression terrifying. Without warning, the entire hall fell silent. Everyone exchanged glances as the atmosphere turned strange. Medicine City was actually interfering in Tianning's internal affairs at a time like this to support His Highness Duke of Qin. Heavens, what's wrong with Medicine City? Could it be that the three great clans and His Highness Duke of Qin had gotten together? Very soon, all sorts of suspicions arose. The Empress Dowager's breathing grew heavier as she clenched her fists. Her rage was on the verge of exploding. Abominable. Too abominable. This damned girl wasn't planning to give a gift. Why did she walk out then? Why did she say so many congratulatory words? What was she doing? The Empress Dowager was so angry that her face had turned white. Her entire body was trembling, while Emperor Tianhui's face had long turned into a palette of colors. Medicine City's public support for Long Fei Yi was beyond his expectations. What was Mu Yingdong planning? What were the Wang and Xia clans planning? Despite the doubtful looks from the crowd, Mu Ling leisurely sipped her tea as if nothing had happened. Han Yunxi's tightly pursed lips slowly rose into a smile. She nudged Long Fei Yi lightly with her elbow and said, I said this girl was very cute, didn't I? Long Fei Yi didn't reply, but gave Mu Ling a rare look. Actually, even without Mu Ling he would have let Emperor Tianhui know that he had foreign powers in his hands today. Since Mu Ling had accidentally chosen to represent Medicine City, he didn't need to explain himself. As Mu Ling drank her tea, she glanced at Han Yunxi out of the corner of her eye. When she saw Han Yunxi smiling at her, she immediately withdrew her gaze and ignored her with a haughty expression. Han Yunxi gave a lazy yawn and drank her tea without looking at her again. Perhaps only Han Yunxi and Mu Ling understood the subtle relationship between them. In any case, everyone present was discussing Medicine City's stance. Emperor Tianhui was finally re-evaluating Long Fei Ye's capabilities. He had to consider how Mu Ling's actions would make the other foreign guests look at him. How could such a good banquet go on? No matter what, it had to continue for the sake of Tianning's imperial family's face. The Empress Dowager was so angry that she wanted to smash her things and leave, but she was still the Empress Dowager. She suppressed her anger and sat upright in her seat. Emperor Tianhui was extremely uneasy. He had to calm down and re-evaluate the power behind Long Fei Yi. It seemed like he'd have to put aside the difficulties he'd prepared for Long Fei Yi. If he forced this retainer brother of his into a corner, he'd really start a rebellion. Under his rule, Tianning looked peaceful and prosperous, but there were internal and external troubles. If Long Fei Yi really made a move, it wouldn't do him any good. Although he knew that Long Fei Yi had won this game, Emperor Tianhui was still unwilling to accept it. But after weighing the pros and cons, he could only endure for now. Your Majesty, I heard that the dancers performed a peach blossom dance for the Empress Dowager. Why don't you have them come up to liven things up? Noble Consort Yun seized the chance to speak up. The Empress had gone mad. As the mother of the second imperial son, Noble Consort Xiao was likely to suffer because of Prime Minister Zhao's stance. Naturally, she had to seize the chance. She had to pave the way for her seventh imperial son. Emperor Tianhui nodded. A group of dancers as beautiful as flowers walked out from the left and right sides of the hall. Their faces were like peach blossoms, and their pink robes fluttered in the wind. They immediately attracted the attention of everyone present. Although everyone was still suspicious of what had just happened, the atmosphere was less tense on the surface. The Empress Dowager silently exhaled, a sinister look flashing past her eyes. Even if I can't make things difficult for the Duke of Qin, should at least embarrass Han Yunxi today. Otherwise, I won't be able to swallow this anger. As they enjoyed the dance, the other foreign guests began to offer their congratulations. None of them acted like Mu Ling did again. Duanmu Bei represented Western Zhou to present the Empress Dowager with a generous gift, which was within everyone's expectations. Although Chu Qingge wanted to support the Duke of Qin, she knew that she couldn't convince Duanmu Bei. She couldn't help but look towards Mu Ling with envy. If I could represent all of Western Zhou, or even the Chu clan, I'd definitely stand on Long Fei Ye's side. Some backgrounds meant that one couldn't do as they pleased. Others allowed you to do as you pleased. After the foreign guests finished offering their congratulations, everything returned to normal. Everyone enjoyed the peach blossom dance with peace of mind. Needless to say, this peach blossom dance was truly beautiful. The Empress Dowager seemed to be enjoying the show, but she was secretly wondering how she should deal with Han Yunxi. Han Yunxi had no idea of the Empress Dowager's thoughts. She was currently savoring the delicacies on the table while enjoying the dance. She'd been busy all this time, so it was rare for her to have a chance to enjoy herself like this. Unexpectedly, Chu Qingge spoke up with a smile. Qin Wangfei. Chapter 312. The crowd tasted the fine wine while enjoying the singing and dancing, chatting in groups of twos and threes. Chu Qingge didn't attract much attention when she spoke loudly, but her cries of Qin Wangfei attracted the attention of everyone present. There was no helping it. Han Yunxi was the center of attention to begin with. Moreover, the person by her side had caused a ruckus at the banquet, so it was hard not to look at her at the mention of her name. The lively hall quieted down once more as the Empress Dowager and Emperor Tianhui looked towards Chu Qingge. That was exactly the effect Chu Qingge wanted. Han Yunxi was a little surprised. She knew Chu Qingge would find a chance to get revenge for the restaurant incident, but never expected her to call her out at the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet. She really didn't know what this woman was thinking. Although this looked like a banquet, it was actually a competition between men. What was a woman like her causing a ruckus? Cold, Han Yunxi asked, "Do you need something?" Qin Wangfei's talents and learning are unparalleled in Tianning. Even our Princess Yao lost to you. Now all of Cloud Realm continent is saying that Princess Yao is inferior to Qin Wangfei. Chu Qingge smiled as she spoke, causing Duanmu Bei's face to darken. What does this woman want to do? Why bring up Yao Yao for no reason? Hasn't she lost enough face? Chu Tiannin's eyebrows creased in irritation as he tugged at Chu Qingge. Unfortunately, she ignored him and kept talking. The so-called talents and learning include poetry and songs, as well as the zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. It's a pity that esteemed Wang Fei only beat Princess Yao in poetry. At these words, Duanmu Bei's gloomy face dissipated into the clear skies. He suddenly realized that this was a great chance to turn things around for Yao Yao. After all, a cold beauty like Chu Qingge had always disdained competitions or women's gatherings. But in reality, her talents and learning far surpassed Yao Yao's. She was the most talented woman in Western Zhou. If she said something like that, then she must be challenging Han Yunxi. Han Yunxi was definitely going to lose. Cold, Han Yunxi looked at Chu Qingge and allowed her to speak without saying a word. Chu Qingge pressed on step by step before adding, "Qingge invites Qin Wangfei to play a piece so I can experience Qin Wangfei's zither skills. It can also count as a performance for esteemed Empress Dowager's birthday celebration." Han Yunxi's lips curled into a mocking smile. It was obvious that she wanted to compete with her in zither skills and avenge Duanmu Yao. Look at how good her words were. With just a few words, she pulled the Empress Dowager to her side. Needless to say, the Empress Dowager had been fretting over a chance to make things difficult for Han Yunxi. As soon as she heard Chu Qingge's suggestion, her interest was piqued. Before Han Yunxi could say anything, the old lady had already made the decision. All right. Good idea. Aijia has also heard that Qin Wangfei's talent is renowned throughout the world. Aijia wants to take this opportunity to see for herself. Esteemed Empress Dowager, why don't we each play a song for the Peach Blossom Dance? Chu Qingge suggested hastily. Very good, very good. The Empress Dowager was very happy. When there was a performance, there would be a competition. When there was a competition, there would be an evaluation. Of course she wouldn't give Han Yunxi a good review. Moreover, playing a song together wasn't an easy task. Playing a live zither accompaniment was the most difficult part. It tested not only one's skill in the zither, but one's temperament and skills as well. This required a certain level of mastery over music. Usually, one had to start from elementary school and receive professional guidance from a court musician. Otherwise, it would be impossible to learn. Of course, the Chu clan could afford to hire a court musician, but Han Yunxi's clan, he. Both Chu Qingge and the Empress Dowager were certain that Han Yunxi didn't know how to play. Indeed, Han Yunxi really didn't know how to play. Forget about accompanying music, she couldn't even understand ancient musical scores. Yunxi, come. Play a song to cheer me up, the Empress Dowager was half joking, half commanding. They'd just come to the birthday celebration, so she couldn't bring herself to ask everyone for gifts. Thus, she couldn't do anything about Long Fei Yi or the other nobles. But now, she had ways to deal with a single Han Yunxi. No matter how strong the Duke of Qin was or how rebellious Han Yunxi was, they couldn't openly defy her orders at the birthday banquet. Han Yunxi hesitated for a long time before replying. "Esteemed Empress Dowager, let Miss Chu play a song first." Hearing this, Chu Qingge and the Empress Dowager were both secretly pleased. If Han Yunxi was in such a difficult position, there'd be a good show to watch later. "Esteemed Empress Dowager, Qingge has embarrassed herself." Chu Qingge couldn't wait to show off. Today, Long Feiyi was present. If she didn't seize the chance to draw his attention, who knew how long she'd have to wait. Today, she'd let Long Feiyi know that she was more than twice as good as Han Yunxi. An expensive guzheng was placed in the center of the hall with Chu Qingge sitting upright behind it. The musicians on the side had all stopped what they were doing to allow a group of pink-robed dancers to surround her. Her white robes made her seem otherworldly, her aura cold and clear. The dancers' pink robes were beautiful and dreamy, like a fairy descending from a forest of peach blossoms. Everyone was intoxicated by the sight. Even Emperor Tianhui grew interested. Unfortunately, Long Feiyi was the only one drinking wine by himself. He was in a world of his own, completely ignoring the beautiful scenery in the hall. When Chu Qingge saw that Long Feiyi wasn't even looking at her, she angrily began to play. Today, she was going to play until he looked over. Clang! At the sound of the music, the dancers began to dance. Chu Qingge was so focused that she didn't have the dancers coordinate with her music. Instead, she used the music to match the dancers' steps. It was the same flourishing peach blossom dance from before, but the accompanying music was completely different. It changed from the bleakness of winter to the cheerful blossoms of spring, to the joy of spring, and then to the fall of spring. It was both romantic and sad. The dance and the music matched each other perfectly, far surpassing the accompanying music from before. Everyone watched and listened until Chu Qingge finished the last note and the dancers stopped. Only then did they recover their senses. The Empress Dowager clapped her hands and exclaimed, "Good! Excellent!" Everyone exclaimed in admiration and praise, but Chu Qingge only had eyes for Long Feiyi, the Long Feiyi who hadn't spared her a single glance. She was so disappointed. She stood up and faced Han Yunxi directly. "Esteemed Wang Fei, it's your turn." Perhaps Long Fei would only realize how good she was at playing the piano with a comparison. He, don't lose face for me or our Tianing." The Empress Dowager was impatient. Currently, Han Yunxi was sitting lazily with her chin propped up in her hand. She had no intention of rising to her feet as she smiled. "Miss Chu is truly formidable. I was completely mesmerized just then. You played so well. Esteemed Wang Fei praises me wrongly." Esteemed Wang Fei can definitely play better than Qingge. Chu Qingge feigned modesty. Han Yunxi's face was full of worry. How could that be? You and the dancers worked so well together. This Wang Fei can't do such a thing. Chu Qingge only felt that these words were strange, but she couldn't put her finger on it. "Yunxi, hurry and play a song," the Empress Dowager urged. But Han Yunxi only laughed. Esteemed Empress Dowager really knows how to joke. Yunxi isn't a servant. How could I play for the dancers? What kind of scandal is that? No matter if they were musicians, singers, or dancers, they were all servants. Whether they sang, danced, or played, they were all there to serve their masters and make them happy. Han Yunxi was a proper Qin Wang Fei, so how could she perform with the dancers? Han Yunxi had only allowed Chu Qingge to go first, but she hadn't agreed to perform. As she spoke, she praised Chu Qingge generously. "It's a pity that Miss Chu didn't become a musician." Her words were like a slap to Chu Qingge's face. How could Han Yunxi do such a thing? What she was proud of was the behavior of a servant in Han Yunxi's eyes. What about Long Fei? Did he think the same thing? Was that why he didn't even spare her a glance? Chu Qingge was furious, but when she saw Han Yunxi dressed in purple and sitting next to Long Fei, she couldn't help but feel inferior to the woman. No. She was too afraid of this feeling. It had to be her imagination. Chu Qingge didn't answer Han Yunxi, but sent a pleading look towards the Empress Dowager. She was very clear that the Empress Dowager wouldn't let go of such a good chance. That's right, the Empress Dowager hated Han Yunxi even more than Chu Qingge. How could she let go of such a chance? Yunxi, you made a promise to me just then. Don't make me unhappy. The Empress Dowager was still smiling, but there was a hidden meaning behind her smile. Esteemed Empress Dowager, Yunxi only wanted Miss Chu to play a song first. When did I ever agree? Han Yunxi pretended to act coquettishly. Then if she plays a song first, you'll take it, the Empress Dowager said patiently. I didn't say I'd take it. If she plays a song first, she'll play another. Han Yunxi said self-righteously. She was simply a scoundrel. Many people laughed at her words. Mu Ling laughed the loudest of all. How could a proud person like Chu Qingge stand it? She huffed and said, Esteemed Empress Dowager, is Qin Wangfei going back on her word? Finally, the Empress Dowager grew serious and said coldly, Yunxi, I'll have you. As the Empress Dowager spoke, she saw Han Yunxi slowly take out a fan from behind her back. First, she turned it over and over in her hands to play with it a few times, then calmly and leisurely fanned herself. As soon as the Empress Dowager saw the fan, she shut her mouth. Heavens! This was the medicine fan, the very thing she'd bitterly searched for decades. She looked forward to seeing it every day, so she recognized it at a glance. It was definitely the best medicine for insomnia, the medicine fan. She'd suffered from insomnia ever since she was young. Every night, she found it hard to fall asleep and had to toss and turn in bed for 2 to 4 hours before she fell asleep. Once she fell asleep, she'd be woken up by noises and couldn't fall asleep again. Instead, she'd have to keep her eyes open until dawn. Naturally, she'd taken plenty of medicine before, or else she wouldn't have lived to this day. She wouldn't be so energetic during the day, but every medicine had a side effect. She was already afraid of taking them. Back then, the head imperial physician had written a prescription for the medicine fan, saying it was only beneficial and harmless to the body. But she'd never found a trace of it. She never thought that it'd end up in Han Yunxi's hands. Only those who'd suffered from insomnia knew how painful it was. The Empress Dowager stared at the item in Han Yunxi's hands and forgot about making things difficult for her. She was so happy that she was about to cry. Very few people could recognize the medicine fan. Chu Qingge didn't recognize it, nor did she know about the Empress Dowager's insomnia. Seeing the Empress Dowager remain silent, she hastened to say, Esteemed Empress Dowager, does your Tianing Wangfei always go back on her word? Chapter 313. Han Yunxi was very satisfied when she saw the Empress Dowager's expression, so happy she was about to cry. She thought that the medicine fan would be useless to her, but now it looked like it was quite useful. She lazily straightened her body and leaned against the back of the chair, fanning the medicine fan in her hand. The embroidered patterns on both sides of the fan flickered in and out of view with her movements. The Empress Dowager's eyes followed Han Yunxi's movements, afraid that she'd miss something and lose the medicine fan. The Empress Dowager liked receiving birthday gifts because she enjoyed the feeling of being respected and pleasantly surprised. But right now, the treasure in Han Yunxi's hands was something she truly needed. Chu Qingge stood in place, waiting for the Empress Dowager to speak, but the Empress Dowager stopped talking and ignored her. She had no idea what the old woman was spacing out for. Han Yunxi and Long Feiyi had caused such a mess at the birthday banquet that the Empress Dowager should be cruel to them. If she couldn't deal with Long Feiyi, how could she spare Han Yunxi? She was giving the Empress Dowager a chance, so why wouldn't she seize it? Esteemed Empress Dowager, Qin Wangfei is such a bully. You have to give me justice. Chu Qingge grew even more impolite. Miss Chu, everyone's watching. Just how did I bully you? What did I promise you? Han Yunxi's calm demeanor was enough to anger a person to death. Chu Qingge had a cold heart and didn't want to waste words with a scoundrel like Han Yunxi. She looked at the Empress Dowager with a serious expression. If this was the past, the Empress Dowager would have forced Han Yunxi to stand up long ago without Chu Qingge's urging. But now she was hesitating. Her mind was filled with thoughts of how to get the medicine fan from Han Yunxi's hands. Han Yunxi was someone who could be persuaded by reason, but not cowed by force. If she got angry and burned the medicine fan, where was she supposed to find a second one? This matter had to be done slowly, and it had to be done intelligently. The Empress Dowager thought that it was better not to provoke Han Yunxi at this juncture. They were like fire and water. If she let Han Yunxi hold a grudge, it would be difficult for her to win. The old Empress Dowager was so lost in her own thoughts that she didn't even notice Chu Qingge's curtsy. She simply treated the girl as air. Everyone in the hall was watching. Chu Qingge waited and waited until she felt like she was singing a one-man show all by herself. Old Empress Dowager, say something. If you don't say anything, where should I put my face? Finally, she couldn't take it anymore. Right now, all thoughts of being aloof, haughty, and cold beauty were thrown to the back of her mind. Flustered and exasperated, she turned to give the Empress Dowager a grand bow. Empress Dowager of Tianning, everyone's watching. Please give Qingge justice. Only then did the Empress Dowager come back to her senses. Miss Chu, please rise. Chu Qingge took a deep breath and straightened up, her haughtiness returning. As long as the Empress Dowager cooperated with her, Han Yunxi's words would be useless. But who knew that the Empress Dowager's next words would be, "It's true that Qin Wangfei never agreed to play a song. It was just a joke, so Miss Chu shouldn't take it seriously." What? Chu Qingge felt like she'd been struck by lightning. She gaped, her entire body stiff. Did I hear wrong? What did the Empress Dowager just say? Esteemed Empress Dowager is wise and brilliant. This Wangfei sees that Miss Chu's Qin skills are truly exceptional. Why don't you play another song to liven up everyone's spirits? Han Yunxi covered her face with her medicine fan and smiled. How could she look so bashful and charming? Liven up everyone's spirits. If Han Yunxi hadn't said that she was a servant, it wouldn't have been a big deal for her to liven things up. But Han Yunxi had just said that she wasn't a servant, so she wouldn't show her face in public. Now she wanted her to liven things up for everyone, much less help them drink. Just what did this woman take her for? Although her status wasn't as high as her status as the Duke of Qin's official consort, she was still the eldest young miss of Western Zhou's Chu clan. Outside of Western Zhou's imperial clan, the Chu clan was the noblest clan in the country. Chu Qingge was a proud person, but she was still so angry that her face turned red. She almost burst into tears as she glared hatefully at the Empress Dowager, unable to comprehend her words. The Empress Dowager was in a difficult position as well. She didn't want to offend Han Yunxi, but she couldn't hurt Chu Qingge either. She was trying to think of a way to settle the dispute and have Chu Qingge return to her seat when Han Yunxi lazily spoke up again. Esteemed Empress Dowager, let Miss Chu play another song. She played so well just then that I still want to hear more. As she spoke, she purposely placed the medicine fan on the table and lightly patted it. This action stunned the Empress Dowager. Could it be that Han Yunxi knows that I've been begging for the medicine fan for ages? Does she know about my insomnia as well? Most likely, the Duke of Qin knows as well, so it's no surprise that Han Yunxi knows. Perhaps the Duke of Qin was the one who gave her the medicine fan. Could it be that she was threatening her with her actions? Damned girl. The Empress Dowager cursed in her heart, but in the end, she couldn't resist the temptation of the medicine fan. Suffering from insomnia for over 20 years was a fate worse than death. It was enough to make her give up on all her past grudges. If Han Yunxi is threatening me, then I still have a chance to get the medicine fan. I won't be impulsive. I'll use my wits. I still want to hear more, too. Miss Chu, can you play another song? The Empress Dowager smiled as she went along with Han Yunxi's wishes. Chu Qingge couldn't believe her ears. Her vision went black, then white. She was so angry that she almost fainted. Who could tell her what was going on? Had the old Empress Dowager lost her mind, or been possessed? She was actually protecting Han Yunxi. Few of the people present could tell Chu Qingge the reason, because everyone else was as incredulous as she was. Even Emperor Tianhui didn't recognize the medicine fan, much to his surprise. What's wrong with Muhu? Although Emperor Tianhui wanted to help Chu Qingge, this was still a woman's affair. He hadn't interfered from the start, but now it was even harder for him to do so. Moreover, he had his own fears. If he interfered, Long Feiyi would get involved as well. If that happened, then the losses would outweigh the gains. Emperor Tianhui hadn't feared Long Feiyi at all before the birthday banquet. He'd only given him a bit of courtesy, but now he feared Long Feiyi even more. Emperor Tianhui glanced at Long Feiyi, who was drinking leisurely without batting an eyelid. In the end, he decided to bide his time. Muhu must have her reasons for doing this, he thought. I'll ask her about them later. Esteemed Empress Dowager. Chu Qingge felt wronged. What, Miss Chu isn't willing to play another song for me? The Empress Dowager's face was filled with disappointment. Chu Qingge almost spat up blood at the words. Intolerable bullying, absolutely intolerable bullying. Duanmu Bei and Chu Tianyin watched from the sidelines. Chu Tianyin furrowed his brows as he lamented the misfortune of his little sister. He'd warned her long ago not to have any ideas about Han Yunxi, but she refused to listen. If news of this reached his father's ears, he wouldn't be able to protect her either. The situation before them was clear. Although there was no way to explain the Empress Dowager's actions, anyone who tried to help her would only be at a loss. Duanmu Bei had been planning to attack Han Yunxi, but now he only rejoiced that he hadn't interfered. Otherwise, he'd be in an awkward spot as well. Chu Qingge couldn't refuse the Empress Dowager since she was the one who'd started all this trouble. Moreover, the two of them had come with Crown Prince Yi to attend the birthday banquet because of Duanmu Yao's collusion with Northern Li's Duke of Kong. In other words, they were here to explain and apologize. Duanmu Yao's matter was still fresh, so she couldn't afford to make the Empress Dowager unhappy in front of everyone, right? Chu Qingge had no choice but to play another song. As long as esteemed Empress Dowager likes it, Qingge will be honored. Chu Qingge didn't even know how she finished her sentence. Her heart was stifled enough to suffocate her. But Han Yunxi only smiled and spoke again. Miss Chu, are you planning to accompany the dancers or play a solo piece? Chu Qingge had to take a deep breath to control her emotions and prevent herself from exploding. A solo piece, she said coldly. Of course she was going to play a solo piece. If she accompanied the dancers, wouldn't she really be a servant performing for everyone's amusement? The dancers withdrew, leaving Chu Qingge to sit by the zither again. Although she was still as beautiful as ever, cold and noble, as if she didn't eat the food of mortals, she'd lost all of her previous self-confidence and ease. The best zither skills lay in one's mental state. If one's heart wasn't calm, the notes would be jumbled up. The more Chuchinga played, the more she lost herself. The more she wanted to give up, but she had no choice but to persevere to the end. She didn't even dare to raise her head to look at the crowd for fear of their mocking gazes. Still, she couldn't help but look towards Han Yunxi. Han Yunxi was still sitting there lazily, admiring her with interest. Even though she'd chosen to play a solo piece, the sight of Han Yunxi's elegant posture and languid gaze still made Chuchinga feel like a servant performing for Han Yunxi's sake. She'd been so confident in challenging Han Yunxi to a duel, but who knew that she'd end up playing 2 pieces in a row while Han Yunxi sat there so respectfully the entire time. She'd won without a fight. Grievance, unwillingness, and resentment all rose up in her heart. Her zither notes grew more and more disorderly as the crowd began to talk amongst themselves. Chuchinga herself didn't notice. She couldn't help but glance towards Long Fei Yi from the corner of her eye, only to see Long Fei Yi looking at her. Heavens, is he finally paying attention to me? Chuchinga's heart trembled. Suddenly, there was a clang as the zither string snapped. Only then did Chuchinga recover her wits and realize how terrible she'd been playing. She looked at the broken string, then looked up at Long Fei Yi. She was at a loss when faced with the attention she'd been longing for. Long Fei Yi was looking at her now, but only at her most wretched state. Long Fei Yi only glanced at her a few times before leaning towards Han Yunxi and intimately pressing his lips against Han Yunxi's ear. She couldn't hear what he was saying. Han Yunxi chuckled softly as if she was very happy. Chuchinga's heart ached at the sight. Are they laughing at me? With the string snapped, she couldn't play anymore. She gritted her teeth and finally lowered her proud head to bow to the Empress Dowager before silently returning to her seat. She'd lost, thoroughly. After Chuchinga's farce, Emperor Tianhui and the Empress Dowager had no choice but to withdraw all of their preparations. The birthday banquet proceeded smoothly. Although it didn't count as a coup d'état, it had far-reaching implications for Tianning. When the banquet ended, Long Fei Yi in Han Yunxi's carriage was the first to leave. Unexpectedly, Mu Ling was even faster than them. By the time they reached the Duke of Qin's estate, Mu Ling was already waiting for them on the steps. Chapter 314. Seeing Han Yunxi and Long Fei Yi get off the carriage, Mu Ling immediately jumped up and ran straight to Han Yunxi. Han Yunxi was used to seeing women who were infatuated with Long Fei Yi, but this was the first time she saw a woman who turned a blind eye to Long Fei Yi. Han Yunxi, where's Qi brother? Mu Ling was very direct. She had been staying in the capital all this time because of Qi brother. She always thought that Qi brother would come after her for pushing Han Yunxi, but who would have thought that Qi brother didn't show up even after waiting for so long? After her father redeemed her out of King Qin's mansion that day, she didn't leave. She stayed in the inn closest to King Qin's mansion and often waited at the front and back gates of King Qin's mansion, hoping to bump into Qi brother. Unfortunately, she returned disappointed every time. You didn't send your Qi brother to me, so how would I know? Han Yunxi asked with a smile. Mu Ling was speechless for a moment and asked again, did Qi brother look for you? This silly girl, was it really okay to ask such a question in front of Long Fei Yi? Even if Gu looked for her, she wouldn't admit it. Mu Ling treated Long Fei Yi like air, and Long Fei Yi also treated her like air. He held Han Yunxi's hand and continued to walk forward, and Han Yunxi followed him. Unexpectedly, Mu Ling boldly stopped Long Fei Yi. You hurt Qi brother. When they were in the bamboo forest in the backyard of the Mu residence, her father questioned her, and she learned that Qi brother was kicked into the water by Long Fei Yi. In fact, her father had been secretly monitoring her every move in the bamboo forest. Unfortunately, she didn't know it all. She even foolishly told her father everything about Gu and told him that she liked Gu. Get lost. Long Fei Yi suddenly said coldly. Mu Ling was intimidated by his aura and obediently took a step back. However, her mouth was still tough. Han Yunxi, Chi brother did all this to help you. If anything happens to him, you'll have to deal with it. After she finished speaking, she turned and strode away. She decided to stay by Han Yunxi's side until Chi brother showed up. She firmly believed that Chi brother would come back to find Han Yunxi. Actually, Han Yunxi didn't need Mu Ling to remind her. She was worried about Gu the entire time. It had been too long since they'd heard from him. She didn't know how badly he was hurt. It wasn't just Gu, but Mute Granny as well. Long Fei Yi had sent Chu Shifeng to search for her, but there was still no sign of her. It was normal that they couldn't find her corpse after falling off such a high cliff. But Han Yunxi was still holding on. She refused to accept the fact that Mute Granny was dead until she saw the body. By the time the two of them returned to the hibiscus courtyard, it was already late at night. They'd lost count of how many times they'd walked through the garden's corridors. In the dead of night, the moonlight shone like gauze. Long Fei Yi held her hand as they walked slowly. Time seemed to slow down here, making everything seem beautiful. Han Yunxi, do you know how to play the zither? Long Fei Yi suddenly asked. Zither? That was such a big word that Han Yunxi didn't even know how to answer. Didn't you hear enough at the birthday banquet? She asked with a grin. Every time, no matter how bright her smile was, he'd always be cold. She always wondered if it was true that smiles could affect people. I'm just asking, Long Fei Yi said mildly. If you want to listen, I'll just play a few pieces. Han Yunxi was still smiling. She'd long gotten used to his coldness. Moreover, she was in a very good mood tonight. She didn't know how to play the accompaniment, much less understand ancient zither scores. But she still knew how to play a few famous zither pieces. If she really played the zither against Chu Chinga tonight, she might not lose. But if there was a better way to beat Chu Chinga, of course she'd use it. She didn't like to perform in front of so many people. That would ruin Qin Wangfei's social status. There were so many influential people at the birthday banquet, but not many of them had the right to hear her play the zither, right? If your lordship listens seriously, will you play seriously as well? Long Fei Yi asked with interest. Han Yunxi raised her head and caught sight of a rare smile in Long Fei Yi's eyes. It was faint and faintly discernible, a smile that wasn't quite a smile. Under the quiet moonlight, it looked especially deep and enchanting. She couldn't help but stare blankly. This fellow must be in a good mood tonight. She couldn't even remember how long it had been since he last smiled. I will. Han Yunxi nodded seriously. She wasn't like Chu Chinga, who played for everyone else. She only played for him. Long Fei Yi held her hand, but they didn't head for Leisurely Cloud Pavilion. Instead, they went to his quarters. Han Yunxi had taken a tour of Long Fei Yi's mysterious quarters on her first day at the estate. She knew that there was a tatami mat tea room with a precious zither inside. But she'd never heard the sound of a zither in the past year since she'd entered the estate. Long Fei Yi personally brewed the tea, its fragrance fresh and clean. Han Yunxi washed her hands and burned incense, its fragrance rising in spirals. Long Fei Yi was clearly holding tea, but his movements made it seem like he was holding wine. He had long changed into a set of loose white robes and was sitting lazily on the tatami mat, sipping from his cup. Right now, he seemed less cold and indolent than before. He sat by the French windows, looking like a wandering immortal beneath the moonlight. Han Yunxi was a good-for-nothing. Right now, all her attention was on Long Fei Yi. This was the first time she'd seen him so indolent after so long. Was this a side of him that she didn't understand? Or was he starting to feel tipsy after drinking so much wine? Suddenly, Long Feiyi asked, Han Yunshi, how long are you going to stare? Han Yunshi gave a start before quickly averting her gaze. She didn't know how to answer him. Didn't this guy always let her stare as she pleased? Seeing Han Yunshi's ears turn red, Long Feiyi's eyes flashed with amusement, but it quickly disappeared. Han Yunshi lightly plucked at the zither and changed the topic. What's the name of this zither? Junyu, Long Feiyi replied mildly. Han Yunshi only felt that it was especially beautiful. As she murmured the two words, Junyu, she plucked at the zither and played the song, Lovers of the Liang. The sound of the zither was mellow and melodious. It was as if she was weeping and narrating, as if she was quietly narrating a 1,000-year-old love story. Han Yunshi didn't know why she chose this song. Perhaps it was because of the name Junyu. Junyu, Junyu. The sound of the zither was like Junyu. Listening to the sound of the zither was like Junyu's voice. How much did she miss him? Long Feiyi supported his head with one hand and listened quietly. He kept looking at Han Yunshi. He seemed to be listening to the song seriously, but he was actually looking at her seriously. He seemed to be entranced by the song, but he was actually entranced by her. He was so serious as he looked at her beautiful brows, her tall nose, her tender red lips, her lowered eyes, and her noble purple robes. She was so elegant and magnificent. He looked at her like she was his prey, but he also looked at her like she was a treasure. As he looked at it, his gaze gradually became solemn and heavy, as if there were many secrets hidden in it that no one knew. She didn't know that his heart for her was just like his gaze at this moment. It was mixed with too many things and also heavy. Han Yunshi lowered her head and continued to play. She didn't notice that Long Feiyi wasn't actually listening to the song, but looking at her. When the last sound of the zither stopped, Han Yunshi raised her head. She herself was immersed in the faint sorrow of Lovers of the Liang. At this time, Long Feiyi had already put away all the emotions in his eyes and returned to his usual silent and cold appearance. What's the name of this song? Long Feiyi asked. Lovers of the Liang, I didn't write it. It's a famous song. Han Yunshi hurriedly explained. Lovers of the Liang. What's the meaning of this name? Long Feiyi was curious. Han Yunshi summarized the story of Lovers of the Liang and smiled. Your Highness, if you were Liang Shanbua, what would you do? But Long Feiyi only replied, Your lordship isn't that weak. Han Yunshi was at a loss for words. All right, even if this guy was in a good mood tonight, she couldn't discuss this topic with him. It didn't suit him at all. Long Feiyi drank a few cups of tea before he commented, it's very nice. Han Yunshi was speechless. She could faintly sense that this guy didn't really want her to play the zither. But what else could he do in the middle of the night besides listening to the zither on a whim? She sat by his side and drank tea with him. Your Highness, the matter of the Western Mountains. Emperor Tianhui had said that she would go to the Western Mountains as soon as the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet was over. Long Feiyi's ruckus at the banquet had indeed threatened Emperor Tianhui, but the matter of the Western Mountains had yet to be resolved. Han Yunshi had taken out the medicine fan because she didn't want to show off her skills on the spot, but also to leave herself a way out so she could tempt the Empress Dowager. You'll understand when you go to the Imperial Physician Courtyard tomorrow, Long Feiyi said mildly. So mysterious. Since Long Feiyi had said as much, Han Yunshi didn't ask any more questions. Her heart was filled with curiosity. What could happen if she went to the Imperial Physician Courtyard? Or was there anyone who could stop her from going to the Western Mountains? Gu Beiyue was impossible. Han Yunshi couldn't figure it out no matter how hard she tried. She could only wait until tomorrow. After they finished talking about the Western Mountains, Han Yunxi fell silent as well. Actually, if she didn't say anything of her own accord, the two of them would spend most of their time in silence. She used to be taciturn as well, but she'd gradually become more talkative recently. Still, she didn't know what to say to him now. If he wanted to listen to the zither, she'd already finished playing. Just like that, the two of them fell into silence again. Actually, the two of them were already used to this kind of silence. It was just that tonight was a little late, and the atmosphere was a little off. Suddenly, Long Feiyi spoke. Han Yunxi. Han Yunxi immediately responded, raising her head to look at him. Their eyes met. Long Feiyi didn't say anything for a long time. Han Yunxi probed, "Your Highness, is something the matter?" Long Feiyi seemed a little hesitant, but he quickly denied it. "Nothing. Let's go. I'll send you back." She didn't know why, but Han Yunxi's heart suddenly felt empty. She responded mildly, Actually, the leisurely cloud pavilion wasn't far from the bedroom." Long Feiyi really held her hand and sent her back to the entrance of the leisurely cloud pavilion. It was very late that night, and her heart was a little messy. The moment he let go of her hand, she once again felt empty. However, he remained calm and rational. He seriously instructed, "You must go to the Imperial Physician Courtyard tomorrow morning. Don't be late." Who would wait for Han Yunxi to go to the Imperial Physician Courtyard tomorrow? Chapter 315. According to the rules, Imperial physicians had to take turns working at the Imperial Physician Courtyard unless they were on leave. But Han Yunxi's status was special. Emperor Tianhui had only given her a title and name, so she was still free to do as she pleased. Han Yunxi couldn't figure out the connection between Long Feiyi telling her to go to the Imperial Physician Courtyard and the Western Mountains. She woke up early the next day and went straight to the Imperial Physician Courtyard. This time, she saw Gu Beiyue. The sun was rising from the east as Gu Beiyue stood by the entrance to the Imperial Pharmacy behind the Imperial Physician Courtyard. His entire body was bathed in the sunlight, his white robes glinting with gold. There was an indescribable air of nobility and holiness about him. Han Yunxi looked towards him and felt like she was looking at an archangel. She didn't know why, but every time she saw this man, she felt wonderful. Even her mood improved. Soon enough, Gu Beiyue spotted Han Yunxi. He quickly walked over and bowed in a cultured and refined manner. This official greets esteemed Wang Fei. "Gu Beiyue, I'm an imperial physician while you're the head of the Imperial Physician Courtyard. I'm your subordinate now, so shouldn't I be the one bowing to you?" Han Yunxi teased. Frightened, Gu Beiyue immediately waved his hands. I don't dare. In terms of medical skills, I really can't compare to you." Han Yunxi was speaking the truth. In the medical academy's rankings, Gu Beiyue was a 5th-ranked divine doctor. She, on the other hand, wasn't even a 3rd-ranked divine doctor. Esteemed Wang Fei, a doctor of poisons is also a doctor. Gu Beiyue was very earnest. Indeed, a doctor of poisons was also a doctor, but Cloud Realm Continent's medical community was controlled by the medical academy. They didn't include a doctor of poisons in their rankings. In other words, they didn't recognize poison doctors as such. Han Yunxi walked towards the Imperial Pharmacy as she spoke. She didn't know what Long Feiyi had prepared for her, but she hadn't seen him yet. She might as well take a stroll around the pharmacy first. Last time, she'd been in a rush to report in, so she didn't get the chance to enter. Perhaps she could even replenish her stock. Since Emperor Tianhui dared to make her an imperial physician, he'd have to prepare to provide her with ingredients at any time. Was Imperial Physician Gu on duty last night? Why are you here so early? Han Yunxi asked. But Gu Beiyue only smiled. This official has been waiting for esteemed Wang Fei the entire time. You knew I was coming. Han Yunxi was surprised. After yesterday's banquet, General Bailey personally instructed this lowly official that he would send someone to pick up esteemed Wang Fei to treat Miss Mingxiang's illness. He wanted this lowly official to prepare the medical record. Hearing Gu Beiyue's explanation, Han Yunxi was even more surprised. But after some thought, she quickly figured out what was going on. This must have been arranged by Long Fei. What kind of illness does Miss Mingxiang have? Is it serious? Han Yunxi asked. Gu Beiyue handed over a medical record. She caught it a few days ago. Multiple imperial physicians have tried, but none of them have cured her yet. Yesterday, this official went to take a look personally. As this official sees it, it's very possible that she's been poisoned. Han Yunxi flipped open the record and saw that it was dated to the morning after Emperor Tianhui had appointed her as an official. Although it hadn't been long, the record already had the handwriting of 4 imperial physicians. Adding Gu Beiyue to the tally, that made it 5. Their previous diagnoses, prescriptions, and medical records were all written down in detail. Han Yunxi and Gu Beiyue hadn't exchanged more than a few words before someone from General Bailey's estate arrived to pick up Han Yunxi. Does Imperial Physician Gu want to go with me? Han Yunxi asked. Gu Beiyue shook his head. This official won't be able to help even if I go. It's better if esteemed Wang Fei goes by herself. Han Yunxi had no choice but to take the medical record with her and leave with General Bailey's men. General Bailey's estate and General Mu's were located on the east and west sides of the capital. Just like General Mu's estate, 2 rows of fully armed soldiers stood before the gates of General Bailey's estate. The vermilion gates stood tall and wide, emanating a dignified aura of military might. Han Yunxi hadn't even gotten out of the sedan chair when she saw a dignified woman standing before the gates. Han Yunxi recognized this woman as the one who'd ridiculed the second imperial prince last night at the birthday banquet. She was General Bailey's youngest daughter and the only unmarried daughter of General Bailey's estate, Bailey Mingxiang. Some women's dignified aura came from their clothes, but this woman relied on her birth and upbringing. The aura of a noble young lady emanated from her bones and was hard to ignore. Han Yunxi dared to guarantee that Bailey Mingxiang's aura would rival that of Tianning's Empress and Empress Dowager in a few years' time. Based on her first impression, Han Yunxi quite liked this woman. But soon enough, Han Yunxi grew frightened as the distance between them drew closer. Her detox system had already detected that Bailey Mingxiang had been poisoned. Not just a single type, but multiple types of chronic poisons. The amount was shocking. Han Yunxi had only done a preliminary examination and found that the poisons weren't fatal, but there were too many of them. What was going on? A complicated look flickered past her eyes before Han Yunxi activated her detox system's in-depth examination and began to analyze every single poison in Bailey Mingxiang's body. As soon as she saw Han Yunxi get out of the sedan chair, Bailey Mingxiang hurried over and bowed. Mingxiang greets esteemed Wang Fei. 10,000 blessings to esteemed Wang Fei. Although Han Yunxi had come as an imperial physician, she was still a Wang Fei. If they found another imperial physician, they'd call for the imperial physician. If they found Han Yunxi, they'd call for esteemed Wang Fei. Aren't you ill? You're still coming out. You may rise, Han Yunxi said mildly. I should have gone to the estate, but I really couldn't walk. That's why I invited esteemed Wang Fei here. I ask esteemed Wang Fei to forgive me. Bailey Mingxiang was very sincere. But Han Yunxi only laughed. Go to the estate. Then why did Long Fei have me go to the imperial physician courtyard? If it was just to treat Bailey Mingxiang's illness, Bailey Mingxiang could have gone to the Duke of Qin's estate instead of the imperial physician courtyard. When she saw Gu Beiyue's medical record and the date, Han Yunxi knew that Long Fei Yi had purposely left a record at the Imperial Physician Courtyard. If Emperor Tianhui asked her about it, she'd have proof. Hearing Han Yunxi's words, the intelligent Bailey Mingxiang couldn't help but smile. In a low voice, he said, "Esteemed Wang Fei, please come inside." Bailey Mingxiang led Han Yunxi to her rooms and dismissed all the servant girls. Han Yunxi quickly asked as soon as she sat down. "It was just an act. Why did you take so many poisons?" "Esteemed Wang Fei is so smart. No wonder His Highness likes you so much," Bailey Mingxiang smiled. That night, Emperor Tianhui made Han Yunxi an imperial physician and told her to go to the Western Mountains to treat the Empress's mental illness after the birthday banquet. Early next morning, Bailey Mingxiang received His Highness's orders to feign illness and leave a record at the Imperial Physician Courtyard. At that time, she didn't know why His Highness wanted to do this. It was only when His Highness pushed her father out at the birthday banquet yesterday that she understood the mystery. At the banquet, His Highness had already made Emperor Tianhui feel threatened. Naturally, he'd have to restrain himself to avoid further conflicts. Under these circumstances, he had her father pretend to know nothing and go to the Imperial Physician Courtyard to ask Han Yunxi to treat a patient. Then he'd use her chronic illness as an excuse to keep Han Yunxi in the capital. In this way, Emperor Tianhui would have no choice but to concede to the threat of the Long Fei Yi, her father's status, and the matter of the Western Mountains. Bailey Mingxiang wasn't sure if this was His Highness's original plan, or a last-minute change of heart for Han Yunxi's sake. But she was certain that Han Yunxi held a significant place in His Highness's heart. No matter what, she still hoped that His Highness would consider the bigger picture and not ruin his plans for a single woman. She'd liked His Highness for so many years, but she liked his coolness and callousness more than anything else. Han Yunxi looked at Bailey Mingxiang, suddenly at a loss for words. He liked her. That was the first time she'd heard such words. Even now, he'd never said he liked her. Sometimes when she thought about it carefully, she didn't even know what their relationship was. When it came to Duanmu Yao's matter, she'd said she minded and he'd explained himself. But before the misunderstanding, they were only husband and wife in name. Soon enough, Han Yunxi recovered from her thoughts and gave Bailey Mingxiang a brilliant smile. She teased, "Even if I'm not smart, His Highness will still like me." "No, you're not smart. His Highness won't like you," Bailey Mingxiang joked back. Han Yunxi only felt that the words sounded strange, but she didn't have time to investigate. Bailey Mingxiang's poisons were very troublesome. She sat down and concentrated on examining Bailey Mingxiang's poisons. Soon enough, she discovered that something was amiss. She had only found that Bailey Mingxiang had many slow-acting poisons in her body. Now that she had analyzed each poison individually, she found that not only did she have many slow-acting poisons, these poisons were not taken at the same time. Instead, she had taken different poisons at different times. In other words, this woman had been taking poisons since she was 7 years old. She would take one every 1 to 3 months. Han Yunxi was even more shocked the more she examined her. Her eyes opened wide as she stared at Bailey Mingxiang in disbelief. She could not believe that this woman was still alive. Although the slow-acting poisons in her body wouldn't kill her, with so many poisons gathered together, the toxicity would be enough to destroy a person's immune system and cause them to die from the poison. How did this woman survive? Han Yunxi suspiciously took Bailey Mingxiang's pulse, but she found that there were no signs of poison. She asked in shock, "What's wrong with your body?" Bailey Mingxiang gave a gentle smile, "Princess Consort, actually His Highness didn't send you here to cure the poison, but to send you here to poison it." "What do you mean?" "Princess Consort, His Highness needs Beauty's blood." Bailey Mingxiang was still smiling, but Han Yunxi was so shocked that she couldn't say a word. Beauty's blood. Han Yunxi had read about it in the ancient poison scripture. Beauty's blood was a kind of poisonous blood that was used to make poisons. Beauty's blood wasn't natural and needed a special physique to cultivate it. The way to cultivate Beauty's blood was to frequently take different slow-acting poisons and let the poison settle in the blood. Only after 300 slow-acting poisons had settled could Beauty's blood be cultivated. As for what would happen to the person after the blood was cultivated, the book did not record it. Looking at the generous and dignified Bailey Mingxiang in front of her with a gentle smile, Han Yunxi's heart ached. It had to be known that Bailey Mingxiang had accumulated over 80 poisons in her body, and there were several dozen poisons that would flare up at any time. She wouldn't die, but living was worse than dying. Even so, she could still smile and say the words Beauty's blood. Chapter 316. Han Yunxi looked at Bailey Mingxiang. Her heart ached, but at the same time, she began to ponder many questions. Bailey Mingxiang had taken the earliest type of poison when he was 5 years old. Bailey Mingxiang was 20 this year, which meant that Long Fei Yi had needed Beauty's blood 15 years ago. Long Fei Yi had only been 8 years old at the time. Was it his Beauty's blood, or was it his relative from the Tang sect? What did he need Beauty's blood for? 13 years ago, Long Fei Yi had only been 10 years old. The previous emperor was still alive, so how could he have subdued General Bailey? Or was General Bailey related to the Tang sect? Just how loyal was the Bailey family to Long Fei Yi, or to the Tang sect, that they were willing to let their daughter suffer so much? Esteemed Wang Fei, His Highness's poison masters have already used up all of their slow-acting poisons. From now on, we'll have to trouble your highness to help Mingxiang concoct medicine. Bailey Mingxiang's words pulled Han Yunxi back from her thoughts. What does Long Fei Yi need Beauty's blood for? Han Yunxi had always thought that the Beauty's blood recorded in the ancient poison codex was nothing more than a legend. She never thought that such a terrifying thing really existed. That's a secret, Bailey Mingxiang replied indifferently. Han Yunxi was angry. You invited me here, but you didn't tell me the truth. Do you think I'll help you? Esteemed Wang Fei, you're not helping me. You're helping His Highness. Bailey Mingxiang was very calm. So you really don't plan on telling me? Han Yunxi asked seriously. Unexpectedly, Bailey Mingxiang smiled. Esteemed Wang Fei, I don't know this secret either. If you want to know, you'll have to ask His Highness yourself. Bailey Mingxiang could see that Han Yunxi was not very happy. She knew that if she did not explain, Han Yunxi would definitely misunderstand. She wasn't trying to show off her secret to Han Yunxi. She really didn't know why she had to raise Beauty's blood. She only remembered that when she was young, her father had taken her to a woman from the Tang sect, a terrifying woman. From then on, she would often take poison. At that time, she did not know that it was poison. She only knew that the medicine was very bitter. She was very afraid of that woman. She didn't even dare to say no. Every time she took the medicine, she would secretly cry for a long time. She hated her father to death. When she was 7 years old, that woman died. She was overjoyed and thought that she would never have to take medicine again. But who knew that when her father went to pick her up, he would bring a bunch of medicine home and force her to take it on time. At that time, she already knew that it was poison because the poison would act up from time to time. She would often vomit from the pain and faint from the pain. She always thought that she would die from the pain. But she didn't. She was still alive. She hated, resented, and tried to escape. Unfortunately, she was powerless. Her father's orders were military orders. She could only obey and had no reason to disobey. When she was 13 years old, she tried to commit suicide. She fell into the lotus pond in the backyard, but she was saved by a boy 3 years older than her. She would never forget how he looked that day. That purple robe was cold and noble. That handsome face was like that of a celestial, and that pair of deep and mysterious eyes. He brought her ashore. Coldly, he said, "You can't die yet. Live on." After that, he stopped talking. No matter how she asked, he didn't say a word. His silence was enough to silence the entire world. After that, he would appear by the pond every evening. He would sit quietly for 2 to 4 hours. He seemed to be in a daze, but also seemed to be thinking. She also went there every day. Sometimes, she would wait for him early. She told him many things. She told him all the grievances and pain she had suffered all these years. She didn't even know if he was listening. In short, for an entire month, he didn't say a word to her. There was even one time when she boldly told him, "Take me away. Take me far away." Helpless, he didn't even look at her. She thought that it was enough that he didn't tell her to shut up. Later, he suddenly stopped coming. She waited every day for 3 months. One day, her father brought her to the Duke of Qin's residence to get medicine. Only then did she know that the person who saved her was the true master of the Bailey estate. He was the master that the Bailey clan had been loyal to for generations, the Duke of Qin, Long Fei Yi. Sometimes, liking someone only took a moment. She admitted that she had fallen in love at first sight. Sometimes, falling in love took many years. All these years, she loved him silently. There was only one way to love him. She followed what he said when he saved her. She couldn't die. Live on. Even her father didn't know the true use of the beauty's blood. She didn't know either. She only knew that it was the reason for her to live on. Bailey Mingxiang had given Han Yunxi too many surprises. She couldn't understand why this woman was willing to suffer so much to raise the poison blood without knowing the use of the beauty's blood. She originally wanted to ask if it had anything to do with the perplexing butterfly illusion, but after thinking about it carefully, she realized that perhaps Long Fei Yi didn't let Bailey Mingxiang know about the perplexing butterfly illusion. So in the end, she didn't say anything and didn't ask anymore. She would have to ask Long Fei Yi about this matter. "Doesn't your father care about you?" Han Yunxi couldn't help but ask. Everyone in the Bailey estate is willing to serve His Highness, even if it costs them their lives. Bailey Mingxiang said very seriously. "Esteemed Wang Fei, His Highness said that the beauty's blood needs to be cultivated in 3 years at the latest. Please feel free to prescribe the medicine." Cultivating the beauty's blood required 300 different poisons. After so many years, Bailey Mingxiang had only taken 80 different poisons. Based on the previous rate of consumption, how many years would it take to reach 300 different poisons? His Highness Duke of Qin had asked Han Yunxi to come here because he wanted her to prescribe a suitable slow-acting poison to shorten the time required. Han Yunxi's brows furrowed. "I don't want to harm anyone. I have to get to the bottom of this." Bailey Mingxiang didn't expect Han Yunxi to say something like this. She froze for a moment, then smiled. "Esteemed Wang Fei, you're not harming me. Perhaps you're helping me. If she could be freed in 3 years, that would be a good thing." However, she didn't know if she would never be able to see His Highness again after she was freed. It was better to deal with the pain quickly than to prolong it. As a poison doctor, Han Yunxi understood this principle better than Bailey Mingxiang. She hesitated for a long time, then silently recorded all the data about the poison in Bailey Mingxiang's body into the detoxification system. She only recorded that it was a slow-acting poison in the Imperial Hospital's medical records, indicating that it would take a long time to recover. She didn't leave any poison behind. Instead, she prescribed Bailey Mingxiang some pills with special effects to relieve the pain. She said indifferently, "I'll come back another day." Bailey Mingxiang didn't say anything else. She smiled gently from beginning to end. She personally escorted Han Yunxi to the gate, respectfully sending esteemed Wang Fei off. Han Yunxi was about to leave, but she couldn't help but say in a low voice, "Go back. If the painkillers don't work, you can come find me at any time." As a doctor, faced with this kind of situation, her heart was so heavy that it felt like it was being weighed down by several large stones. She had a way to remove all the poison in Bailey Mingxiang's body in a single day, but that would mean that Bailey Mingxiang had suffered for more than 10 years in vain. "Long Fei Yi, just how cold-blooded are you?" Not long after Han Yunxi left, Aunt Ru appeared in front of Bailey Mingxiang. She allowed Bailey Mingxiang to bow on one side while she examined Han Yunxi's medicine with a serious expression. After a long time, she said coldly, "You may rise." Yes, Bailey Mingxiang was very reserved. "Why didn't she prescribe any poison for you?" Aunt Ru asked. Esteemed Wang Fei said she wanted to know what was going on. Bailey Mingxiang replied honestly. Aunt Ru's eyes flashed with displeasure. "Don't tell His Highness that I came by." Bailey Mingxiang nodded without a second thought. But as soon as Aunt Ru left, she sent someone to report the news to Chu Shifeng. As intelligent as she was, she could tell at a glance that Aunt Ru harbored enmity towards Han Yunxi. She didn't know why, but she had a responsibility to tell His Highness everything. Han Yunxi went to the Imperial Physician Courtyard and gave the forged medical records to Gu Beiyue for safekeeping. Then she hurried back to the Duke of Qin's estate. She was anxious to see Long Fei Yi and ask about Bailey Mingxiang. But before she reached the corner of an alley, someone blocked her way. "Esteemed Wang Fei, may this one have the honor of inviting you to sample tea with us. It's the newest Chiman Red." At the familiar voice, Han Yunxi abruptly lifted the curtains, only to see Gu Qishao dressed in red robes, his figure enchanting as he stood in front of the carriage. In his hands was a large red porcelain teapot, his face capable of causing the downfall of cities and nations was smiling like a blooming flower. Han Yunxi was pleasantly surprised. She quickly jumped off the sedan chair and rushed to Gu's side. "Are you all right? Don't worry, I won't die." Gu was incomparably happy as his smile became even more resplendent. TSK, you're very concerned about me. If I knew this would happen, I would have suffered a few more kicks from Long Fei Yi." Being able to talk back meant that he was fine. Han Yunxi put on a fake smile. "Mu Linger has been looking everywhere for you." In reality, Gu had been following Long Fei Yi and Han Yunxi to the capital. He was only afraid that Long Fei Yi would discover him, so he didn't dare to get too close. He had been recuperating in the capital the entire time. Mu Linger had been imprisoned by Long Fei Yi and later released. She had also caused a scene at the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet. He knew all of this. "Let her look for me," Gu heartlessly said. Who would have thought that Han Yunxi would be even more heartless than him? Who was the one who said that I could capture her and beat her to death? Just wait. Gu handed the tea over to Han Yunxi and actually turned to leave. Han Yunxi quickly pulled him back. "That's enough. We'll settle the grudges between us. Don't interfere." If Han Yunxi's guess wasn't wrong, Mu Linger wouldn't be having a good time these past few days. News of the birthday banquet would quickly spread back to Medicine City. If the three great clans found out that she had acted on her own and didn't send a congratulatory gift, even her father Mu Yingdong would want to beat her. "Then will esteemed Wang Fei do me the honor of drinking a cup of tea with this humble one?" Gu pretended to be polite. "Let's go." Han Yunxi was very straightforward. She could tell that Gu had come for a reason. Gu brought Han Yunxi to the capital's highest grade tea house after the Ming Xiang tea house, the Heavenly Fragrance tea house. After entering, Han Yunxi found out that this was also one of Gu's businesses. This guy was truly a hidden tycoon. How many other businesses did he have that Long Fei hadn't found out? The two of them sat down in a first-class private room. Han Yunxi went straight to the point and asked, "Tell me, why did you come looking for me?" Gu gazed at her with deep affection. "I missed you." Chapter 317. Faced with Gu's deep affection, Han Yunxi couldn't help but roll her eyes at him. "I really do miss you," Gu said seriously. Perhaps she'd heard too many jokes from him, but Han Yunxi wanted to roll her eyes even more now that he was serious. People who joke seriously are the most hateful, aren't they? And? Han Yunxi asked helplessly. Gu finally got to the point. "Where's Mute Granny?" He'd wanted to tell Chu Shifeng that night, but couldn't stop worrying about Poison Lass. In the end, he'd followed them instead. At the mention of Mute Granny, Han Yunxi's bright eyes dimmed. In a low voice, she murmured, she was kidnapped and fell off a cliff. Gu was alarmed. And then? Mute Granny was too important. If they wanted to uncover Han Yunxi's true identity, they'd have to rely on Mute Granny. "We don't know if she's alive or dead," Han Yunxi said, before adding, "We haven't found her body yet." Gu's eyes flashed shrewdly before he asked, "Who kidnapped her?" "Black robes and masks." "I don't know who they are." Han Yunxi had already asked Chu Shifeng about the details of the incident. Who could kidnap someone from Long Fei's hands? Gu had his suspicions. If Long Fei had taken Mute Granny with him that day, then she wouldn't have. Han Yunxi was very upset. She'd always remembered Mu Ling's words. She was the one who'd harmed Mute Granny. If she hadn't taken Mute Granny away from the Mu estate, none of this would have happened. It wasn't easy to kidnap someone from Long Fei's subordinates, was it? Gu's words had a deeper meaning, but Han Yunxi didn't catch it. She said mildly, "It wasn't Muingdong. He still doesn't know about this. I don't know what Mute Granny's kidnappers are planning." Gu pondered for a moment before saying, "Poison Lass, do you have the antidote for broomcorn millet poison?" Previously, Han Yunxi had already detoxified Mute Granny, but she still needed the antidote to cure her deafness and muteness. "What's the point of finding the medicine if we can't find the person?" Han Yunxi said helplessly. She had given the prescription to Long Fei, but she reckoned that he still hadn't found the person. Long Fei was so busy, so he probably wasn't in a hurry to find the medicine, right? Gu stretched out his hand. "Let me have a look. I'll help you find it." Not only did he have to find people, but he also had to find the antidote. Was Gu too idle? Han Yunxi almost wondered if this guy had nothing better to do. Of course, Han Yunxi was still very happy to give the antidote formula to Gu. This guy's ability to find medicine was much better than Long Fei's. The antidote for broomcorn millet poison only required 3 ingredients: serpent fruit, bear chuan, and panoptic red lotus. When Gu saw this, he couldn't help but click his tongue. These are all good stuff. Isn't that so? I haven't seen any of them with my own eyes. They're not easy to find, Han Yunxi said seriously. If Mute Granny was still alive, she might not be able to find these 3 ingredients even if she found Mute Granny. This was because these 3 ingredients had very strict requirements for their growing environment. They also took a long time to grow and were rare to begin with. Add to that the fact that they died prematurely in the middle of their growth, and there weren't many left. Although they were rare, Gu was still very confident. "Poison Lass, don't worry. Leave these 2 things to me. With one more person searching, one more source of strength and one more hope." Han Yunxi nodded seriously. How are you going to repay me after I find the person?" Gu asked with a smile. The serious Han Yunxi immediately chuckled. She narrowed her eyes and laughed coldly. You don't have to find her. Gu Qixiao's smile turned stiff. Is this woman my natural enemy? Aside from that one time in the cave, he always felt like he'd lost to her. Han Yunxi liked seeing Gu's speechless expression more and more. But jokes aside, she couldn't help but probe, Gu, if I'm really a remnant of the poison sect, will you not like me anymore? She could see Gu's good points, but she could also see through Gu's motives. This guy had been interested in her poison skills, then the Tang clan's hidden weapons, then the embroidery on her medical pouch. He'd investigated Lady Tianxin, then found Mute Granny. Everything he did was to investigate her background. He was very concerned about whether or not she was related to the poison sect. Now, he was looking for Mute Granny to find out if the rumors about Mu Axayan and the poison sect were true. Was her biological father a remnant of the poison sect, or was it Hong Kongan? If she told him right now that her biological father wasn't Hong Kongan, but was most likely a remnant of the poison sect, how would he react? Why was he so concerned about whether or not she was related to the poison sect? There are no ifs. Gu was still smiling, but he couldn't hide the determination in his voice. I say, what if there are ifs? Han Yunxi continued to ask. Gu suddenly stood up and leaned forward across the tea table. Han Yunxi didn't move, allowing him to get close to her. Gu didn't speak, but his eyes locked onto Han Yunxi's. At this moment, his gaze was as cold as a falcon's as it locked onto its prey. Han Yunxi's heart skipped a beat. She allowed him to stare at her in a daze, caught off guard. She never expected Gu to look at her like this. Did this guy have a grudge against the medical academy or the poison sect? Was he looking for a descendant of the poison sect for revenge? Han Yunxi immediately went on guard. She was about to dodge when Gu suddenly backed away. His eyes narrowed into two crescent moons as he smiled like a bear. Hee hee, poison lass, are you scared? Han Yunxi was about to fall back, but his teasing made her unable to stop herself. She gaped at Gu before her entire body toppled backward. Gu rushed to the table and hurriedly grabbed Han Yunxi. Carrying her, he spun her around and landed firmly on the ground. He hugged her as tenderly as before. Poison lass, if you really are, then I'll pretend you're not. Do you believe me? Why are you looking for a descendant of the poison sect? Han Yunxi asked seriously. Sometimes, she felt that Long Fei was especially hateful because he was like a taciturn gourd who never spoke a word. But right now, she realized that Gu Qixiao was the most hateful of all. He always laughed and joked about anything, but never spoke the truth. As a catalyst to refine an antidote. Gu was still grinning from ear to ear. Han Yunxi pushed him aside. Using a human as a catalyst to refine an antidote? What kind of poison are you infected with? The world's most poisonous poison, Gu chuckled. Han Yunxi ignored him. She'd been treating poisons for so many years, but she'd never heard of anyone using a human as a catalyst to refine an antidote. It didn't matter if this guy didn't tell her the truth. She wasn't going to tell him the truth anyway. Han Yunxi finished the tea on the table and turned to leave. She still had important matters to attend to and couldn't be bothered to waste her breath on Gu. But Gu stopped her and handed over a canister of tea leaves. Here, new tea. He knew she liked new tea. Long Fei Yi had sealed off his tea plantation in Tianing, and this was the best tea he could find in Cloud Realm continent. Even he couldn't bear to drink it himself. Thanks. Han Yunxi really did like it. She was already at the door when she turned back. Gu, Mu Ling, really likes you. Don't let her down. Han Yunxi, I really like you. Don't let me down, Gu said confidently. This guy, he's really something. Han Yunxi casually threw the canister at him and left without looking back. Gu caught the canister and smiled helplessly. Even after Han Yunqi's figure had disappeared from sight, Gu was still smiling. His smile was flirtatious and dazzling. If Long Fei Ye's eyes were unfathomable, then Gu's smile was unfathomable. He stood by the window and soon spotted a familiar figure at the entrance of the inn across the street. It was none other than Mu Ling. Actually, he'd bumped into Mu Ling many times in the capital. When he saw Mu Ling didn't see him. But each time, he didn't react at all. It was as if he was just a passerby who didn't recognize the girl. This time, Gu stared at her for a long time before his lips curved up in a naughty smile. Mu Ling had just received a messenger pigeon from her father, telling her not to return to Medicine City for the time being and to hide outside. News of her taking matters into her own hands at Tianning's Empress Dowager's birthday banquet and supporting the Duke of Qin, Long Fei Yi, by not sending any congratulatory gifts had already reached Medicine City. The Wang and Xia clans were extremely dissatisfied and called for a meeting in Medicine City to punish her. Everyone in the Mu clan was demanding that she be punished severely. Perhaps the Wang and Xia clans supported Long Fei Yi, but how could they easily let go of such a good opportunity for a genius from the Mu clan? As for the Mu clan, both the older and younger generations wanted their favorite Mu Ling to suffer a setback. They were even more eager than the Wang and Xia clans for Mu Ling to be punished. No matter how strong Mu Yingdong was, the pressure of public opinion and opposition from his own clan was too much for him to handle as the head of the clan. Besides, this was Mu Ling's fault in the first place. He could only use Mu Ling's whereabouts as an excuse to delay matters. Mu Ling was in a terrible mood when she received the news. She went back to her room and flopped onto her bed. As soon as she closed her eyes, her beautiful brows creased into a frown. As a genius pharmacist, how many people in Medicine City truly took pride in her? Her father was probably the only one. Almost everyone wanted her to die. She really didn't want to fight for anything. If possible, she'd rather be a person with average talent. I wonder where Chi brother is right now. She sighed in her heart, but in the next instant, she heard that familiar voice. You damned girl who bites the hand that feeds you, hee hee. Mu Ling immediately shot up from her bed and cried out in alarm, Chi brother. Chi brother, where are you? Gu descended from the roof and looked at her coldly. Mu Ling, how come I didn't know you were so vicious when I first met you? Mu Ling naturally knew that he was talking about the incident in the sky pit. She bit her lip and lowered her head. I also think I'm vicious. Chapter 318. Seeing Mu Ling hang her head dejectedly, Gu asked with interest, and then, I don't know, Mu Ling was very honest. If this was the past, she would have just let him do whatever he wanted with her. But now that Han Yunqi had already let her go, Chi brother was still taking her seriously, she felt very sad. She couldn't quite accept it. Gu beckoned her over with a finger. Help me do something. I won't bicker with you if you do. Mu Ling's dim eyes immediately brightened. She was in high spirits as she smiled brightly. She scooted over and asked happily, what is it? Just tell me. Gu tossed the prescription for broomcorn millet poison to her. Help me find Bear Chuan and Panoptic Red Lotus. Mu Linger's skills in the field of medicine were unparalleled. She was used to seeing all sorts of strange prescriptions in the world, but she couldn't understand this one. This is for the antidote, right? Mu Ling asked in bewilderment. Of course she recognized these ingredients, but she didn't know how they worked together. Just find the ingredients. Why do you care so much? Gu didn't tell Mu Ling that mute granny had been poisoned to the point of deafness and muteness, nor did he plan to tell her that this was the antidote for broomcorn millet poison. It wasn't that he was on guard against Mu Ling, but that he didn't think the girl needed to know, so he couldn't be bothered to tell her. Mu Ling asked resentfully, then what about serpent fruit? It's not easy to find. Gu smiled. I have serpent fruit. Where did you get it? Mu Ling was astonished. As a genius pharmacist in Medicine City, she knew all sorts of wondrous medicines in Cloud Realm continent. As far as she knew, only His Excellency Pill Fiend from Medicine Ghost Valley had a serpent fruit. It was unknown whether it was ripe or not. I stole it, Gu replied offhandedly. You went to the Medicine Ghost Valley to steal things. Mu Ling was frightened. She had met His Excellency Pill Fiend once, and even now, she was still scared witless. That old thing was strange and terrifying. He was not easy to deal with. If he knew that Chi Brother stole the serpent fruit, he would not let Chi Brother have a good day. Gu avoided the question and threw a can of tea leaves to Mu Linger. It's new tea. Here you go. Mu Linger hurriedly caught it, afraid that it would break. She was very curious. I don't like to drink tea. I like it, Gu said as he walked out. Mu Linger opened the teapot suspiciously and smelled the aroma. Why didn't she know that Chi Brother had this hobby? Chi Brother, but as soon as she looked up, Gu Qishao was gone. Chi Brother, where are you going? Wait up. Mu Linger chased him all the way out of the inn, but Gu was long gone. Will it kill you to chat a little longer? Mu Linger pouted, her dissatisfaction written all over her face. Of course, she quickly returned to the inn and packed her things in a flurry to return to the Mu estate. Bear Chuan and Panoptic Red Lotus were two very rare ingredients that she couldn't remember clearly. She had to go back and check her notes for details. As for the messenger pigeon she'd received from her father, she'd long forgotten about it. Han Yunxi returned to the Duke of Qin's estate just past noon. She was planning to hide in her study and ponder over the perplexing butterfly illusion while waiting for Long Fei Yi to return. Unexpectedly, Long Fei Yi was actually in the flower gardens. She had forgotten the last time he was in the manor in broad daylight. When Han Yunxi arrived, Chu Shifeng was reporting on Aunt Ru's visit to General Bailey's estate to see Bailey Mingxiang. When he saw her, he withdrew. Han Yunxi got straight to the point. Your Highness, is Beauty's blood related to the perplexing butterfly illusion? Beauty's blood was cultivated from hundreds of poisons. If Long Fei Yi wanted it, it had to have something to do with the perplexing butterfly illusion. Long Fei Yi was about to explain when Zhao Mama suddenly came to report, Your Highness, Aunt Ru's come. She's at Sunset Cloud Pavilion and says it's urgent. She wants you there immediately. Long Fei Yi had purposely stayed at the estate today to wait for Han Yunxi. He didn't expect Aunt Ru to come here after visiting General Bailey's estate. His eyes flashed with displeasure, but he still rose to leave. He told Han Yunxi, wait for me, I'll find you later. Han Yunxi didn't have a good impression of Aunt Ru and felt a little uneasy. Alright, I'll wait for you. As soon as Long Fei Yi arrived at Sunset Cloud Pavilion, Aunt Ru asked him sternly, Are you going to tell Han Yunxi the secret of Beauty's blood? Is there a problem? Long Fei Yi retorted. You've changed. Aunt Ru scolded. Over the past few days, she'd been looking for a chance to make a move against Han Yunxi, but hadn't found a chance. Although she knew that her stubbornness would only disgust she couldn't bear to see it. After all, even a good girl like Bailey Mingxiang didn't have the right to know the secret of Beauty's blood. How could Han Yunxi know? Yi had lost all reason because of Han Yunxi's charms. She'd given Han Yunxi the task of deciphering Rosemary, but she'd never allow Han Yunxi to know the secret of Beauty's blood again. Andrew, if there's nothing else, I'll be leaving first. Long Fei Ye's cold attitude was enough to make anyone despair. But Andrew only said, your uncle wants to see you. Same old place. Compared to Andrew, Long Fei Ye respected his uncle even more. A complicated look flitted past his eyes before he turned and left without another word. Andrew had already told her older brother, the head of the Tang clan and Tang Li's father, Tang Zijin, everything, including the secret that Han Yunxi was a guardian of the Shadow clan. She dearly wanted to go deal with Han Yunxi right now, but she held back. She trusted that her brother would have a better idea than her. As soon as Long Fei Yi left the room, she immediately followed after him. The same old place Andrew spoke of was located in the western suburbs of Tianning's capital city. Besides the solitary enclosure, Long Fei Yi also hid in the hidden pavilion. As its name suggested, the hidden pavilion was hidden in a steep cliff face, built according to the natural conditions of the cliff face. The entire building was hidden in the recess of the cliff face, while the protruding part was a man-made balcony. Standing on this balcony, one could overlook the entire capital city. Even Tianning's imperial palace was beneath their feet. By the time Long Fei Yi arrived, Tang Zijin was brewing tea on the balcony. The man was nearing 40 years old, but he didn't have a beard. His jade-like face was handsome and elegant. Uncle, when did you get here? Why didn't you say anything? Long Fei Yi asked mildly. You clearly knew that Li was engaged, but you still hid his whereabouts. How abominable! Tang Zijin reprimanded unhappily. Long Fei Yi sat down and calmly poured tea. Uncle, a forced melon isn't sweet. Is that so? I think your forced melon isn't bad at all. Tang Zijin was clearly hinting at something. Long Fei Ye's eyes darkened, unaffected by Tang Zijin's words. He avoided the topic and asked, Uncle, you didn't come here just to criticize me, did you? Since Tang Zijin had said so, Tang Li must have been caught by now. I heard Andrew say that you gave the perplexing butterfly illusion to Han Yunxi. Tang Zijin asked seriously. She was able to break through it, Long Fei Yi replied. Is that girl reliable? Andrew said that her mother, Lady Tianxin, had unknown origins. Actually, Tang Zijin had long known the truth, but he knew Long Fei Ye's temper well. He wouldn't be as impulsive as Andrew. Even if she's unreliable, she can't escape my grasp. Uncle, you can set your mind at ease, Long Fei Yi said mildly. This is a serious matter. Uncle believes in your discretion. Tang Zijin hesitated for a moment, then said, Your Aunt Ru is just worried about you. Don't hold a grudge against her. Strictly speaking, Tang Zijin wasn't just Long Fei Ye's uncle, he was also Long Fei Ye's subordinate. The same was true for Aunt Ru. The Tang sect status was one level lower than the Bailey clans. However, Long Fei Yi had never treated them as master and servant. Andrew always acted like an elder, so Tang Zijin was much more polite. How could that be? Long Fei Yi didn't say a single word. Even Tang Zijin couldn't figure out his attitude. Of course, other than his own son, Tang Zijin was very patient when it came to Long Fei Yi. He took out an invitation and changed the topic. I'm here to bring Tang Li back, and to give you an invitation. The bright red invitation was undoubtedly Tang Li's wedding invitation. Long Fei Yi was surprised. So soon. If we don't hold the wedding soon, who knows what that brat will do. Tang Zijin was serious. Long Fei Yi flipped through the invitation, his eyes dark. He didn't say anything. When the time comes, bring Han Yunxi back with you. Since you trust her, you should tell her everything. Tang Zijin's attitude was completely different from Aunt Ru's. However, Long Fei Yi didn't seem surprised at all. He nodded silently. Okay. After drinking tea, the two chatted until night fell. Tang Zijin didn't ask about Han Yunxi again, and Long Feiyi didn't take the initiative to talk about it either. No one who overheard their conversation would believe that Tang Zijin was here to speak for Aunt Ru. At night, Tang Zijin ordered someone to deliver good wine. It's been a long time since you've spent time with Uncle. How about a few drinks? If this was any other time, Long Feiyi would definitely stay, but he refused this time. I still have matters to attend to. Maybe another day. Tang Zijin's eyes flashed with disappointment, but he quickly hid it and nodded with a smile. Go on, then. Don't delay. As soon as Long Feiyi left, Aunt Ru rushed out angrily. Why didn't you mention the beauty's blood? What's the meaning of this? Tang Zijin only gave her 4 words. Take your time. Big bro, this can't be delayed. The Shadow Clan is protecting someone. That Han Yunxi is the orphan of Western Qin's imperial clan. Aunt Ru said seriously. The Shadow Clan isn't hard to deal with, and Han Yunxi is even easier to deal with. The hard part is Fei. Remember, you can only use your wits. Tang Zijin's expression was pensive. He'd long come up with a plan. Everything would wait until Tang Li's wedding. As long as Han Yunxi dared to enter the Tang clan, he'd have a way to deal with her. Aunt Ruth sucked in a deep breath. Although she was unwilling, she had no choice. I'll listen to you. After leaving the hidden pavilion, Long Feiyi didn't immediately return to the leisurely cloud pavilion. Instead, he went to the solitary enclosure and personally dispatched 10 shadow guard experts with a single sentence. No matter what method you use, rescue Tang Li before the wedding. Whether Long Feiyi's actions were to help Tang Li, or because he'd already sensed Tang Zijin's intentions, only he knew. By the time he finished arranging everything, it was already midnight when he returned home. The lights in the leisurely cloud pavilion were still lit. Chapter 319. In the dead of night, the Duke of Qin's hibiscus courtyard was even quieter. The lanterns in leisurely cloud pavilion were still lit. From a distance, one could see a beautiful figure standing in front of the window. It was Han Yunxi. Long Feiyi stood in the garden's corridor and watched from a distance. He looked hesitant for a long time, but in the end, he still went over. Before Long Feiyi even reached the leisurely cloud pavilion's courtyard, Han Yunxi spotted him. She hurried downstairs and ran to Long Feiyi with a smile. You're back. She'd been waiting for Long Feiyi ever since he left. She'd wanted to continue studying the perplexing butterfly illusion, but she couldn't calm down no matter what. Tang Zijin was Long Feiyi's uncle and the head of the Tang clan. He was probably on the same side as Aunt Ru. Actually, she really didn't understand why Aunt Ru was so hostile towards her. Although she'd never met Tang Zijin, Han Yunxi knew that he wasn't a good person based on how he'd forced Tang Li to marry him. Long Feiyi definitely didn't know that Han Yunxi had been standing in front of the window all night. Han Yunxi was very happy, but Long Feiyi was very calm. He only nodded and walked into the study. Although this guy was always cold and indifferent, Han Yunxi could clearly sense that he wasn't in a good mood. She followed him in and asked, "The Tang clan, did something happen?" Long Fei examined the various poison plants on her desk as he replied, "I'm fine." Oh. Han Yunxi was a little resentful. She knew there was something going on, he just didn't want to talk about it. Long Feiyi soon saw the poison orchids that Han Yunxi had stored in a glass bottle. They were the highly corrosive plants they'd picked from the underground labyrinth of the poison sect's forbidden grounds. Any progress with the perplexing butterfly illusion? He asked mildly. He had given the perplexing butterfly illusion to Han Yunxi some time ago. What he wanted was the recipe for the perplexing butterfly illusion. Although Han Yunxi was busy these days, she didn't forget about it. There were two types of poisons. One was a single poison, and the other was a combination poison. Single poison. Poison, as the name suggests, was a single type of poison. Poisons that existed in nature, such as poisonous plants, animals, and stones, were mostly single poisons. Combined poison was the abbreviation for mixed poison. Most of the poisons that were concocted by humans were mixed together to form a new poison. For example, the 10,000 snake poison that Mu Qingwu was afflicted with was a typical example. Although the combination poison was a mixture of many poisons, there was only one type of poison after the mixture was made. The poison orchid was very peculiar. Its existence was beyond the scope of these two classifications. The detoxification system couldn't detect the toxicity of the poison orchid, but it could detect several types of single toxins in the poison orchid. Logically speaking, the poison orchid should be a combination poison. Because the detoxification system didn't have a record of it, it couldn't detect its toxicity. Han Yunxi had analyzed all of the single toxins in the poison orchid and found all of them to make a new type of poison. As a result, the detoxification system had a record of it. However, when she checked the poison orchid again, she still couldn't detect any toxicity. In other words, the new type of poison she made after analyzing the poison orchid wasn't the poison of the poison orchid itself. The detoxification system's analysis was the most accurate. It could even analyze the amount of poison in the poison orchid and make a new type of poison according to that amount. According to this principle, the detoxification system could detect the poison of the poison orchid. Han Yunxi couldn't understand it no matter how much she thought about it. She almost suspected that there was a problem with her detoxification system. In the end, she understood. The method I used was to extract each type of poison and then make a new type of poison according to the ratio. The poison orchid was grown, so its toxicity might be different. That's why the new type of poison I made wasn't the poison of the poison orchid, Han Yunxi explained seriously. A layman would probably be confused by her explanation, but Long Fei Yi immediately understood. He said, "So, the poison orchid is a new type of poison orchid that was created by crossing various types of single poison herbs." Right. This should be a hybrid type of poison orchid. Han Yunxi really thought that this guy was smart. This type of hybrid method wasn't new. Medicine Ghost Valley's Gu Qi Sha was an expert in this field, but he cultivated medicinal herbs instead of poisons. Perhaps the perplexing butterfly illusion was also cultivated. Long Fei Yi muttered to himself. Han Yunxi still hadn't been able to detect the poison of the perplexing butterfly illusion, not even the tiniest bit. She had always been very careful when it came to poisons. That's hard to say. Your Highness, the perplexing butterfly illusion is something from the poison sect, right? Long Fei Yi nodded, then said, "Whoever obtains the perplexing butterfly illusion controls the world." Han Yunxi had asked this question before, but Long Fei Yi had said that she didn't need to know that much. She hadn't expected that he would take the initiative to say so much today. Han Yunxi felt an indescribable sense of satisfaction. She felt like she was one step closer to this man and knew more about him. Of course, she was also very surprised. She hadn't expected the secret of the perplexing butterfly illusion to be like this. Whoever obtains the perplexing butterfly illusion controls the world. How did she understand this? One type of poison can conquer the world. Han Yunxi expressed her confusion. That's what this prince wants to know as well. How can one type of poison conquer the world? Long Fei Yi had pondered this question for more than 10 years. He didn't want to believe it, but this was something his mother had exchanged with her life. These were the last words his mother had said before she committed suicide. One type of poison conquers the world. This is all your mother can give you. What about the beauty's blood? What's the deal with the beauty's blood? Han Yunxi asked seriously. She had waited so late because she was worried about him, but also because she wanted to know what the beauty's blood was used for. Even though Andrew had warned him, and even though Tang Zijin had been paying attention to this matter, Long Feiyi didn't hide it from Han Yunxi. The perplexing butterfly illusion formula is mixed with the beauty's blood. That's where the perplexing butterfly illusion comes in. Han Yunxi knew that the beauty's blood had something to do with the perplexing butterfly illusion. Uses. What does the perplexing butterfly illusion do? Han Yunxi was even more confused. Aside from poisoning, what else could it be used for? Long Feiyi had long suspected that his Mufei knew how to conquer the world with the perplexing butterfly illusion. She just didn't want to tell him. Long Feiyi glanced at Han Yunxi without a word. He walked around the study table, looking at the poisons on the table as he fell into deep thought. Your Highness, does it have to be the beauty's blood? Han Yunxi wanted to ask. Does it have to conquer the world with the perplexing butterfly illusion? Long Feiyi seemed to understand what she meant. His eyes flashed with a domineering determination. Han Yunxi, the world is bigger than you think. The world he wanted wasn't just limited to Tianning or the Three Nations. He wanted all of Cloud Realm continent, and even overseas. Han Yunxi gave a slight start. She always knew that Long Feiyi wasn't a person who lived in a small pond, but she never expected him to have such wild ambitions. Long Feiyi wasn't part of Tianning's imperial clan, but he still hadn't fought against Emperor Tianhui despite holding great power. She always assumed that he had no interest in Tianning's imperial power, but now it looked like he wanted to use Tianning as a stepping stone. What about the Great Qin Empire's world? Han Yunxi suddenly recalled Cloud Realm Continent's golden age. Long Feiyi didn't answer her. He stopped walking and said, "Prepare the medicine for Bailey Mingxiang. Get the beauty's blood as soon as possible. Perhaps it'll help you break through the perplexing butterfly illusion. Your Highness, it's supposed to take a lifetime to cultivate the poison blood. Once the time limit is shortened, Bailey Mingxiang will be in so much pain that he'll wish he was dead," Han Yunxi reminded him. Normally, a slow-acting poison every 2 to 3 months would take a person a lifetime to use 300 different poisons. No one can wait an entire lifetime, Long Feiyi said. That's too cruel. Han Yunxi was both a doctor and a woman. In the end, she couldn't bear it. An entire lifetime is the cruelest. Long Feiyi's voice was as cold as ice. Han Yunxi pursed her lips in silence. She looked at his grim profile and felt like she could see his cold, emotionless heart. Her heart couldn't help but shiver. Just how cold was this man's heart? Had he ever hesitated over Bailey Mingxiang's loyal subordinates? But he was right. An entire lifetime was the cruelest. Next time you go to General Bailey's estate, remember to bring the medicine with you. Long Feiyi instructed before turning to leave. Han Yunxi was lost in her thoughts, her expression grave. But at this moment, Zhao Mama was about to bring supper to the study and blocked Long Feiyi's path. Your Highness, please wait. This old servant knew you were coming, so I specially made your favorite snow lotus seed soup. Zhao Mama smiled until her eyes were covered in wrinkles. Only the heavens knew what she was so happy about. In short, she had been in the kitchen all night, cooking soup while smiling. Your Highness, you haven't eaten it in several years. Quickly try it and see if this old servant's skills have deteriorated. Long Feiyi didn't even look at the snow lotus seed soup, but he still went back to sit down. Zhao Mama was overjoyed and quickly brought over 2 bowls of lotus seed soup. Princess Consort, quickly try it. This is what His Highness has liked to eat since he was young. Han Yunxi scooped up a spoonful and saw that the snow lotus seed had been boiled until it was gummy. It was still crystal clear and the lotus seed opened to reveal the tender green core. The soup was just right. With this appearance, Han Yunxi felt her mouth watering. Long Fei Yi liked things, so it must be a delicacy. Long Fei Yi had already begun eating. He held the bowl in one hand and the spoon in the other. His eyes were lowered as he quietly ate. His every movement was elegant and noble. Han Yunxi knew for the first time that Long Fei Yi liked something. She couldn't wait to know what it tasted like, but who would have thought that as soon as it entered her mouth, she would immediately spit it out. What kind of taste was this? Wasn't it too bland? Long Fei Yi looked up and knit his brows. Zhao Mama quickly came over. Princess Consort, why did you choke? Han Yunxi hadn't choked at first, but she was in a hurry to answer Zhao Mama. As soon as she spoke, she was choked by the remaining juice in her mouth. Ko. She suddenly coughed and couldn't breathe. Long Fei Yi was very anxious and quickly sat down to pat her back. Zhao Mama originally wanted to help, but seeing this, she quickly pulled her hand back as if it was burned. She sternly said, "Your Highness, Princess Consort has choked. Patting her back is useless, you have to pat the front." Chapter 320. Han Yunxi coughed with all her might, but she still didn't recover. Long Fei Yi kept patting her back anxiously, but he didn't dare to use too much force. In a moment of desperation, he heard Granny Zhao's reminder. His large hand really reached in front of her and gently moved downwards. Again and again, he pressed them against her chest, carelessly brushing his fingertips over Han Yunxi's proud spot. In a flash, Han Yunxi only felt a current of electricity crawl from her heart to her entire body, leaving her with an indescribable feeling of limp and numbness. She sucked in a breath of cold air, and her breathing suddenly became smooth. She pursed her lips tightly, and her entire body stiffened. She didn't dare to cough again, and her little face, which was already red from holding it in, was now so red that it could burn with fire. She wanted to push his hand away, but her body was so stiff that she couldn't even control her own hands. Long Fei Yi was anxious, but he didn't know what he was doing. He continued to stroke her from top to bottom, and another inadvertent thing happened. Han Yunxi's body couldn't help but tremble. This time, Long Fei Yi realized that something was wrong with her. He quickly stopped, thinking that something was wrong with her. "Han Yunxi, what's wrong?" he asked anxiously. His handsome brows were furrowed so tightly that it seemed like they would never disappear. Not to mention Han Yunxi, even Granny Zhao had never seen Long Fei Yi so anxious before. Han Yunxi's ears were burning. I'm fine. Other than saying that she was fine, what else could she say? His hand was still on her chest. She didn't know if Granny Zhao, who was old and shrewd, had seen anything just now. She stood at the side with a faint smile. Long Fei Yi was completely unaware. He sized up Han Yunxi and only let go after confirming that she was fine. "Eat slowly." He sat back down and continued to eat the lotus seed soup with his head lowered, as if he wasn't the one who was anxious just now. How could Han Yunxi still be in the mood to eat? She also lowered her head, but her heart was still thumping wildly, almost jumping out of her chest. Even being forcefully kissed by this guy didn't make her feel so alarmed. She knew that he didn't do it on purpose, but what was wrong with her? Her heart was beating so fast that she couldn't stand it. "Esteemed Wang Fei, are you still not feeling well? Why aren't you eating?" Granny Zhao asked. Long Fei Yi immediately looked up, but he didn't say anything. No, my throat feels a little uncomfortable." Han Yunxi made up an excuse. Granny Zhao immediately poured some water. "Esteemed Wang Fei, here, moisten your throat." The room was quiet again. Han Yunxi found that Long Fei Yi was very quiet when he was eating. It didn't take long for him to finish eating. At this moment, Granny Zhao discreetly nudged her. "Your Highness, it's already so late. Why don't you stay?" Han Yunxi was not stupid. She immediately understood what Granny Zhao meant. She secretly pinched Granny Zhao, but didn't manage to stop her. "Your Highness, it'll be dawn in 2 hours. You and esteemed Wang Fei should go upstairs to rest. This old servant will prepare breakfast for you. Your Highness hasn't eaten this old servant's tofu pudding in a long time, right?" Granny Zhao asked while nudging Han Yunxi, asking her to stay. Han Yunxi didn't say a word and immediately pushed her back. Long Fei Yi was a smart person, so he understood Granny Zhao's meaning. He inadvertently glanced at Han Yunxi. It was just a glance, but Han Yunxi was so embarrassed that she didn't dare to look at him. He wouldn't think that it was her idea to ask him to stay, right? She only knew that once he left, her heart would always feel empty, but she never thought of it as Granny Zhao thought. There were some things that were unimaginable. Han Yunxi was clearly tricked by Granny Zhao, but facing this kind of situation, she was actually a little nervous. She didn't know how he would answer. The room was silent. The perpetrator, Granny Zhao, deliberately didn't say anything. In fact, she was also nervous in her heart. Long Fei Yi acted as if nothing had happened. He poured himself a cup of tea to rinse his mouth, then stood up. Seeing him stand up, the breath that Han Yunxi had been holding in her heart was all released. She felt very relaxed, but at the same time, she also felt empty. There was a sense of loss that she didn't even notice. Granny Zhao's disappointment was written all over her face. She was a little sad. "Your Highness, it's really been a long time since you've eaten this old servant's breakfast." Who knew that Long Fei Yi would walk to the chaise lounge at the side and lazily lie down? "This prince still has important matters to attend to, so I'll leave after resting for 2 hours. Granny Zhao was overjoyed. She actually ordered Han Yunxi, "Esteemed Wang Fei, quickly, bring His Highness a bed-sheet." Han Yunxi didn't react for a moment and foolishly went upstairs. When Han Yunxi came back with the brocade bed-sheet, Granny Zhao had already disappeared. All she saw was Long Fei Yi lazily lying on the chaise lounge with one hand supporting his head. His eyes were slightly closed. His handsome face that angered both men and gods lost some of its coldness and softness. Han Yunxi stood at the door in a daze. She only felt that this was a picture of a beautiful man, so beautiful that it seemed unreal. She stood there foolishly, forgetting what she came here to do. Not long after, Long Fei Yi opened his eyes and looked over. "Han Yunxi, what are you standing there for?" Actually, he knew when she arrived at the door and had been waiting for her the entire time. Han Yunxi finally returned to her senses and hurriedly took the brocade bedsheet. Just as she was about to drape it over him, Long Fei Yi sat up and took off his spacious white robe that was trimmed with gold. Han Yunxi immediately looked away. But she couldn't help but sneak a peek at him again. She had saved countless people in her previous life and this life. She had made male patients take off their clothes countless times. She had long gotten used to it, but... Alright, there were no buts. It wouldn't hurt to look one more time. Han Yunxi, this fool, must have forgotten that she had made Long Fei Yi take off his clothes the first time she saw him. She sneaked a peek. Long Fei Yi had already taken off his outer robe. He was wearing a brocade white inner robe with a V-shaped neckline under his Adam's apple and narrow sleeves around his waist. It was neat and clean. Seeing Long Fei Yi lying down, Han Yunxi hurriedly covered him with a brocade bedsheet. She had to admit that this guy, even if he was wearing an ordinary inner robe, was so noble that he couldn't be offended. Alright, he stayed. What about her? Long Fei didn't say anything. He narrowed his eyes and seemed to be asleep, but also seemed to be taking a nap. Han Yunqi stood aside for a long time, not knowing what to do. It seemed that she should go upstairs to sleep. If she didn't sleep, it would be dawn. But this guy had stayed. According to the rules, it seemed that she had to serve him. Han Yunqi struggled for a while and finally sat down. She didn't notice that Long Fei's eyelids were slightly raised and he glanced at her. The room was silent. Time was passing. It was almost dawn, but Han Yunqi didn't feel sleepy at all. She quietly looked at Long Fei's peaceful sleeping face. She secretly wondered if Long Fei stayed because he was really sleepy, or because he wanted to save her face. She admitted that she couldn't see through him. Even if it was a small matter, she couldn't guess his thoughts. The more she looked, the more she felt that this man was a stranger. Just how many things were there about him that she didn't know? After a long period of silence, Lil Thing carefully poked its little head out from under the desk. It had been hiding here since Long Fei's arrival. Its bones were aching from all the nesting. As soon as it saw that Long Fei had fallen asleep, it immediately slipped out and crawled onto Han Yunqi's body, rubbing against her pitifully. "Mama Yunqi, don't you want me anymore? Why did you leave this cold, fiendish god sleeping here? It's too scary." At this moment, Long Fei looked up again. Lil Thing immediately sensed danger and its fur stood on end. It jumped off Han Yunqi's hand and disappeared like a wisp of smoke. What's he so excited about? Han Yunqi was doubtful. She didn't realize that Long Fei wasn't sleeping at all. Tu Shichen was only 2 hours. As Han Yunqi sat and sat, she didn't even know when she fell asleep. By the time she woke up, she found herself lying on the chaise lounge. Long Fei had long disappeared without a trace. Could it be that he was still eating? She quickly got off the bed, only to discover that she was barefoot. Her shoes and socks were neatly placed to one side. Was it him? Warmth flowed through her heart. She didn't even bother to put on her shoes as she ran out barefoot, only to bump into Xiao Mama, who was about to enter the room. As soon as Xiao Mama saw her bare feet, she muttered, "Esteemed Wang Fei, if His Highness saw you, he'd definitely be unhappy." "Where is he?" Han Yunqi asked. Xiao Mama's interest waned. If esteemed Wang Fei didn't keep him, how could this old servant's bowl of tofu pudding keep him? Didn't keep him. How was Xiao Mama going to keep Long Fei? Han Yunqi sat back on the bed and raised her eyebrows as she looked at Xiao Mama. She didn't speak. Xiao Mama felt guilty and took the initiative to curry favor. "Esteemed Wang Fei, His Highness left at dawn. He said that he had something important to do in the Yu Pavilion and would only be back in a few days." Han Yunqi looked at her coldly and didn't say a word. "Esteemed Wang Fei, this is the first time His Highness told this old servant?" No, he told esteemed Wang Fei about his whereabouts." Xiao Mama said with a chuckle. Han Yunqi couldn't hold it in any longer. "What's the matter?" "His Highness didn't say." "Esteemed Wang Fei, His Highness has many things to do." Xiao Mama replied. Han Yunqi became interested. "Where is the Yu Pavilion?" She knew of the existence of the Yu Pavilion and the Solitary Garden, but she had only been to the Solitary Garden. The Yu Pavilion seemed to be even more mysterious than the Solitary Garden. Xiao Mama chuckled. "Esteemed Wang Fei, this old servant will definitely tell you everything I know. This old servant can't wait for you to know more about His Highness." Han Yunqi suddenly didn't know how to answer her. She put on a fake smile and pretended not to hear. However, Xiao Mama became serious. "Esteemed Wang Fei, don't waste time with His Highness like this. This old servant can see that His Highness dotes on you." Seeing that Han Yunqi didn't speak, Xiao Mama said earnestly, esteemed Wang Fei, if there are 100 steps between you and His Highness, as long as you take one step, His Highness will definitely take the remaining 99 steps. Han Yunxi felt a little bitter. She didn't know how many steps she had taken in the 100 steps, nor did she know how many Long Fei Yi had taken. She only knew that the distance between them seemed to be a little long. Esteemed Wang Fei, what's wrong? Even Xiao Mama could sense Han Yunxi's heaviness. However, Han Yunxi smiled. Her clear eyes were especially bright as she joked, Xiao Mama, can I take 99 steps? Esteemed Wang Fei, this old servant is serious. I'm not joking with you. Xiao Mama grew anxious. Han Yunxi was still smiling. This Wang Fei isn't joking either. I'm telling the truth. Xiao Mama felt helpless. Han Yunxi took the chance to slip away, her smile still as she muttered to herself, 99 steps, how far is it? Han Yunxi didn't rest, but went to General Bailey's estate early that morning. While she was there, Gu Beiyue went to see Emperor Tianhui of his own accord. Chapter 321. Gu Beiyue had come to see Emperor Tianhui early in the morning to discuss Han Yunxi's treatment of Bailey Mingxiang. As the head of the Imperial Physician Courtyard, he'd long received news of Emperor Tianhui's orders for Han Yunxi to go to the Western Mountains to treat the Empress. According to the rules, he was supposed to make arrangements for Han Yunxi's departure after the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet. But he hadn't made any arrangements yet, and Emperor Tianhui hadn't asked about the matter either. Gu Beiyue was very clear that Emperor Tianhui's lack of questions didn't mean the matter was over. Emperor Tianhui dreaded Long Fei Ye's display of strength at the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet, which was why he hadn't forced Han Yunxi. Meanwhile, General Bailey had come to seek treatment right after the banquet on Long Fei Ye's orders. As the head of the Imperial Physician Courtyard, Gu Beiyue had kept himself aloof from the internal struggles of the Imperial harem. Naturally, he had his own wisdom. He could see through everything. Now that Han Yunxi was going to the Western Mountains, Emperor Tianhui wouldn't ask her about it of his own accord, nor would Long Fei bring it up. The final decision rested in his hands as the head of the Imperial Physician Courtyard. He was sandwiched between the two emperors. If he allowed the matter to pass quietly, he'd be the unlucky one in the end. Your Majesty, this is Miss Mingxiang's medical record. She's been ill for a long time. Multiple imperial physicians have failed to treat her, and my subordinates are useless as well. General Bailey begged esteemed Wang Fei to treat her and confirmed that she's been poisoned. It'll take some time to treat the poison, Gu Beiyue explained as he handed over the medical record. Emperor Tianhui took it and tossed it onto the table. Gu Beiyue, you mean to say that the Empress's illness isn't as important as Bailey Mingxiang? Your Majesty has clear judgment. This humble official absolutely didn't mean that. Gu Beiyue immediately kneeled down with a look of panic on his face. Emperor, General Bailey did not know that the Princess Consort was going to the West Mountains. General Bailey came to ask for medical treatment on the night of the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet. He said that he wanted the Princess Consort to see if she was poisoned. So you agreed to his request? Emperor Tianhui asked sternly. This humble subject didn't think that Miss Mingxiang's poison would be so serious. I thought that esteemed Wang Fei would just prescribe some medicine, but I didn't think that it would take so long. Gu Beiyue's head was bowed. He looked humble and flustered, but his clear eyes were calm and unperturbed. You didn't think of that? Gu Beiyue, then tell Zhen, what should we do now? Emperor Tianhui said as he slammed the table, his rage rising to the skies. Gu Beiyue lowered his head even more. Your Majesty, please calm down. Forgive this minister for speaking frankly, but the Princess Consort is a poison doctor. She is good at detoxifying poisons and is not good at treating illnesses. The Empress Phoenix body is precious and cannot be treated carelessly. This humble subject knows a divine doctor who has done extensive research on mental illnesses. He is willing to serve esteemed Empress. Hear that, Gu Beiyue's words were so beautiful. Not only did he elevate the Empress, but he also gave Emperor Tianhui a way out. Long Fei Yi had already shown such an attitude. If Emperor Tianhui insisted on sending away Han Yunxi, heaven knows what Long Fei Yi would do next. Now Emperor Tianhui had lost all interest in sending away Han Yunxi. All he needed was a way out. Of course he could tell that Bailey Mingxiang's illness had been arranged by Long Fei Yi. He was planning to drag things out a bit longer before investigating the matter and severely punish Gu Beiyue for neglecting his duties. Then he'd use Gu Beiyue as a stepping stone to get out of the situation. Now things were good. Gu Beiyue had given him a way out while absolving himself of his crimes. Seeing Emperor Tianhui hesitate, Gu Beiyue added, "Esteemed Empress Phoenix body is precious and can't afford any mishaps. May your majesty reconsider." See, now he'd given Emperor Tianhui another way out of the situation. It made it seem like Emperor Tianhui didn't care about esteemed Empress if he didn't agree to send someone else to the Western Mountains. Although Emperor Tianhui wasn't willing to let Gu Beiyue off the hook so easily, he still went with the flow. Looks like Jin overestimated Han Yunxi. Since that's the case, Jin won't count on her anymore. We'll do as you say. Emperor Tianhui's serious expression only made him look hypocritical. Gu Beiyue had long gotten used to it. He raised his head and smiled faintly. Your Majesty is wise and brilliant. Very soon, news of this reached Long Fei Yi's ears. Gu Beiyue's quite smart, Long Fei Yi rarely praised anyone. Actually, neither he nor Bailey Yuanlong had given Gu Beiyue any instructions. Of course, if Gu Beiyue didn't take care of things properly this time, Long Fei Yi would push all the blame onto Gu Beiyue if Emperor Tianhui investigated and kicked him out as a scapegoat. Your Highness, last time you went to the Gu estate. Chu Shifeng probed. Last time, His Highness had taken advantage of Gu Beiyue's absence to pay a visit to the Gu estate. He hadn't said a word when he came back. Long Fei Yi remembered clearly that he'd seen Gu Beiyue's skills when he was tailing Han Yunxi in Medical City. He was certain he hadn't seen wrong. Gu Beiyue knew martial arts, and his skills weren't low either. He had to have a motive for hiding in Tianning. Just because he didn't discover anything last time at the Gu estate didn't mean he'd let it go. Long Fei Yi didn't reply, but a guard from the hidden pavilion arrived. Your Highness, we've found the whereabouts of the serpent fruit. Where? Long Fei Yi was clearly anxious. The serpent fruit was one of the ingredients in Mute Granny's antidote prescriptions. He'd been searching for the 3 ingredients ever since he saw the prescription from Han Yunxi. It's in Medicine Ghost Valley, in the hands of pill fiend Gu Qi Sha. The guard replied. Medicine Ghost Valley, Long Fei Yi muttered to himself as he gestured for the guard to withdraw. Your Highness, that old thing Gu Qi Sha isn't easy to deal with. Chu Shifeng hesitated. He remembered that His Highness had offended Gu Qi Sha when he brought esteemed Wang Fei to ask for medicine last time. It wouldn't be easy to get the serpent fruit from Gu Qi Sha's hands. Even if they tried to trade for it, they might not get it. Long Fei Yi's expression was indifferent. Cold, he said, go set a time and say that your lordship wants to challenge him to a duel. If your lordship wins, I'll hand over the serpent fruit. If I lose, he can set any conditions he wants. His Highness Duke of Qin was so domineering. Chu Shifeng was thrilled and couldn't help but look forward to Gu Qi Sha's reaction when he found out. He wanted to see his master and Gu Qi Sha fight and beat him to a pulp. How could someone as proud as Gu Qi Sha refuse a challenge? Yes, this subordinate will go right away. If they wanted to know Gu Qixu's reaction, they'd have to wait until Chu Shifeng returned. For the next few days, Long Feiyi remained in his secret rooms at the hidden pavilion. Even the shadow guard had no idea what His Highness Duke of Qin was doing. Meanwhile, Han Yunxi had been visiting Bailey Mingxiang's estate for 3 days straight. During this time, she didn't give Bailey Mingxiang any medicine, but gave him a thorough examination. She read through all the records of the poisons Bailey Mingxiang had taken, then used the detox system to analyze them all. She was certain that the records left behind by the poison masters matched the system's analysis. Although she didn't want to admit it, she had to face reality. Long Feiyi had asked her to poison Bailey Mingxiang, which was tantamount to slow murder. She wasn't related to Bailey Mingxiang in any way, but as a doctor, she couldn't bear to do such a thing. If possible, she hoped to find a way to cultivate Beauty's blood while preserving Bailey Mingxiang's life at the same time. After 3 days of interaction, Han Yunxi discovered that Bailey Mingxiang was not only gentle and magnanimous, but also extremely talented and well hidden. Whether it was the zither, chess, calligraphy, painting, or poetry, she was proficient in all of them. Her family's collection of paintings, calligraphy, and poetry numbered in the hundreds. Moreover, she was familiar with history and the art of war. Other noble young ladies formed cliques and factions to show off and compete with each other, but she brewed her own tea, brewed her own wine, and drank it in a leisurely and carefree manner. If a woman like this didn't have Beauty's blood to deal with, how stunning would she be? Leaving aside men, even women like Han Yunxi liked her. Currently, Han Yunxi was tasting Bailey Mingxiang's homemade grape wine. She liked it after a single taste. She didn't know much about wine, but she knew it tasted good. Your Highness, as long as you like wine, it's good. I've prepared 2 jugs, please accept them. Bailey Mingxiang's smile was always so gentle. Many thanks. Han Yunxi really liked the wine, so she didn't hold back. Your Highness, can you start taking the medicine today? Bailey Mingxiang had waited for 3 days. Although she didn't like to complain to His Highness, if Han Yunxi still didn't prescribe medicine, she could only ask her father to find His Highness. Han Yunxi raised her eyebrows and looked at her. After a long time, she said, "Wait until your poison flares up. I'll leave later." My poison flares up. Bailey Mingxiang didn't react for a moment. Han Yunxi said helplessly, "The time of your poison flares up is actually not irregular. There are a total of 37 chronic poisons in your body that will flare up at certain times. The 37 poisons are mixed together, so you can't figure out the pattern. In another hour, one of the poisons will flare up." Bailey Mingxiang was very shocked. It wasn't because of the poison flares up. She used to be very afraid of the poison flares up, but she had slowly gotten used to it over the years. It wasn't that she wasn't afraid of pain, but she was used to it. She was shocked by Han Yunxi's ability. Han Yunxi hadn't even checked her pulse for the past few days, but she could say it so accurately. "Don't worry, I'm not lying to you. I've prepared the painkillers for you. The poison that flares up this time is called cold poison. You'll be so cold that your entire body will hurt," Han Yunxi said as she wrote. She had to write down all 37 poisons that would flare up and indicate the time of their flares. Although it wouldn't be of much help to Bailey Mingxiang, it would at least let her know when she would be in so much pain that she wanted to die. Bailey Mingxiang naturally believed in Han Yunxi. She knew that the person that His Highness Duke of Qin put in an important position must have real talent. She prepared the painkillers and sat to the side to watch Han Yunxi write. However, when Han Yunxi finished writing, tears welled up in Bailey Mingxiang's eyes. Han Yunxi not only showed the pattern of each of the 37 poisons, she also wrote down the painkillers for each poison in great detail. There were several pages of it. Han Yunxi's hands were sore from writing. She waved her hands as she instructed, "Read it when you have nothing to do. There are many painkillers that have to be prepared in advance. Every bit of pain you can reduce is a good thing." "Qin Wangfei, you don't have to help me relieve the pain," Bailey Mingxiang said faintly, hiding the tears in her heart. Chapter 322. What, aren't you afraid of pain? Han Yunqi asked with interest. "I'm afraid." Bailey Mingxiang was very honest. How could she not be afraid of pain? She had been in pain for more than 10 years. It wasn't that she wasn't afraid of pain, she was just used to it. She had lost her mother when she was young and was sent to the Tang sect to ingest poison to nourish her blood. No one had ever asked her if she was afraid or if it hurt. The most common sentence her father had told her was, "Mingxiang, soldiers have to be soldiers." None of her older sisters knew about the beauty's blood. They were all jealous that her father had placed her in an important position and sent her to the Tang sect. She didn't need to marry and could stay in General Bailey's estate to serve His Highness Duke of Qin. After so many years, she never thought that the first person to show concern for her would be His Highness Duke of Qin's official consort, Han Yunqi. "If you're afraid, then why are you still showing off?" Han Yunqi smiled. Bailey Mingxiang suddenly didn't know how to respond. Showing off. Fine, she admitted that Han Yunqi's words had struck a chord in her heart. Although she didn't want to admit it, she knew that she was showing off. But so what if she was showing off? Hadn't she persevered until now? Her life wouldn't be long. She thought that she should show off for the rest of her life. As they spoke, Bailey Mingxiang suddenly shivered. She had been fine before, but now she suddenly felt cold. The poison was acting up. She was all too familiar with this feeling. Soon, she would be so cold that her entire body would tremble uncontrollably. She made a prompt decision. "Esteemed Wangfei, please wait outside for a moment." Before she could finish speaking, Han Yunqi stood up. She didn't walk out, but silently lit the stove in the room. Then she poured a cup of hot water and dissolved the painkillers in it. She hadn't even shown it, but Han Yunqi had seen through her. "Esteemed Wangfei, I'm fine. Can you leave first?" She was actually still able to smile. Han Yunqi gave her a serious negative answer. "No." Bailey Mingxiang just didn't want Han Yunqi to see her most embarrassed and unbearable side. Han Yunqi didn't leave, so she just smiled helplessly and didn't say much. She sat beside the stove, curled up her body, and rubbed her hands together to keep warm. At this time, the cold air had already begun to emerge from her feet and scalp, and gradually spread throughout her body. That feeling was as if a large basin of cold water was slowly poured over his head. The cold water slowly soaked his entire body and invaded every pore. Bailey Mingxiang curled up into a ball. Soon, his originally pale face turned purplish green. His lips were clearly bitten, but they were still pale and bloodless. Just how cold was it? However, under such circumstances, she was still able to maintain her last bit of rationality. She remained silent and did not utter a single word of Leng. If it was someone else, they might not be able to tell that she was in pain, but Han Yunqi could tell at a glance. She made a prompt decision. "Lie down on the bed, I'll give you some acupuncture to keep you warm." The cold poison's coldness came from within the body, so no matter how much she tried to warm it, it would not dissipate. She could only start from within. "Princess Consort, it's no use. I know my own body." Bailey Mingxiang's lips were clearly trembling, but she was still able to smile. Her smile was gentle, tranquil and beautiful, just like a warm day in winter. "I know it better than you." Quickly. Han Yunqi was anxious for her. She grabbed her hand, but who knew that when she grabbed it, she would unconsciously withdraw her hand. So cold, so cold. That cold air was contagious. She could even feel the cold air invading her hand. Han Yunshi didn't do it on purpose, but she did withdraw her hand. Princess Consort, it's fine. It's over. Bailey Mingxiang comforted her. It's not over yet. Han Yunshi was infuriated for no reason. She didn't wait for Bailey Mingxiang to lie down. She sat behind Bailey Mingxiang and immediately took out her golden needles. Although it was difficult to find an acupuncture point through the clothes, Han Yunshi's movements were as smooth as moving clouds and flowing water. She was very experienced and nimble. Not long after, Bailey Mingxiang's back was covered with golden needles. If she could, she wanted to help Bailey Mingxiang get rid of the cold poison, but she couldn't. She could only use the needles to disperse the cold air, not in a fit of pique. Is it better? Han Yunshi asked with concern. Bailey Mingxiang finally let out a sigh of relief. It's not that cold anymore. I told you it would be useful. Han Yunshi unconsciously let out a breath of turbid air. She had encountered many difficult cases, but she had never felt as depressed as she did today. She could clearly cure the poison, but she couldn't. It was truly depressing. Han Yunshi was not idle. The cold poison would cause pain all over the body. She took out the painkillers that had been dissolved in the water. Based on Bailey Mingxiang's situation, she estimated that she would need to increase the dosage. She took out another painkiller and dissolved it in the water. This method would allow the medicine to be absorbed faster and the painkillers would be better. However, when Han Yunshi dissolved the painkiller, Bailey Mingxiang couldn't help trembling. Actually, the golden needles on her back had no effect at all. She was still very, very cold. She had lied to Han Yunshi. At first, it was only her hands that were trembling, but soon her entire body was trembling. She tightly pursed her lips, afraid that her teeth would chatter. Drink a bowl first. Only then will the medicine be effective. Han Yunshi raised her head. She had just brought the bowl of medicine over when her hand froze. She had seen the truth. You lied to me. Princess. Princess Consort, it's fine. You can leave first. I will be better soon. There's no effect at all. Han Yunshi was angry and shocked. Bailey Mingxiang did not answer her. That pale smile was indescribably sad. She stood up with difficulty and walked towards the bed. Han Yunshi quickly stood up to help her. This time when she touched her hand, Han Yunshi did not let go, but it was so cold that her hand was trembling. Bailey Mingxiang's situation was several times worse than she imagined. Was it because of her special constitution? At this time, Han Yunshi did not have time to think about it. She helped Bailey Mingxiang to the bed and took out the golden needles before letting her lie down. Using the needles was more direct than any other method of warming up. If the needles were useless, then other methods would be even more useless. This was the first time in Han Yunshi's life that she did not know what to do with a patient. Bailey Mingxiang curled up in the blankets and began to tremble even more. It was as if she could not stop trembling. Princess Consort, I've been rude. She said this and turned around with her back facing Han Yunshi. After half an hour, Bailey Mingxiang continued to tremble. The powerless Han Yunshi sat on the side. Looking at the trembling back, she felt a kind of sad and desolate feeling. After the cold retreated, the pain came again. Han Yunshi carefully fed Bailey Mingxiang 2 bowls of painkillers, but it was the same as before. The painkillers had no effect at all. Bailey Mingxiang did not say a single word of pain. Her back was still facing Han Yunshi as she lay there for another half an hour. It was so painful that she was covered in sweat. It was so painful that she bit her lip until it bled. It was so painful that she could not help thinking of her childhood. She thought of the lotus pond with the door open, and she thought of that cold as ice youth. No one would ever know that the best painkiller was him. Your Highness Duke of Qin, Mingxiang does not dare to hope for anything. I only hope that when the day comes that the beauty's blood matures, you will remember that there is a woman in this world called Bailey Mingxiang. Finally, the pain receded. Bailey Mingxiang turned around. Her face was filled with exhaustion and her eyes were about to close. Go to sleep. I'll prescribe medicine for you, Han Yunqi said indifferently. Bailey Mingxiang smiled faintly, then quickly closed her eyes and fell asleep. Han Yunqi sat to the side, watching over her as she prescribed medicine. She prescribed a lot of medicine, so much that Bailey Mingxiang had to take a poison every day. Long Fei said that a lifetime was crueler, but a cruel lifetime was the cruelest. Bailey Mingxiang, you can either hurry up and die or come back to life. Han Yunqi muttered to herself. She had decided that she would help Bailey Mingxiang cultivate the beauty's blood in the shortest time possible. At the same time, she would try her best to find a way to save her life in the next 6 months. After going through so much, she could not die like this. She had to be stronger and live on. Only then would she be worthy of all the suffering she had suffered. Before Bailey Mingxiang woke up, Han Yunqi left, leaving behind a pile of poison. As soon as Han Yunqi returned to the Duke of Qin's estate, she immediately shut herself in the study and meditated. Her soul wandered into the large space of the detoxification system. The detoxification system had several poison manuals, and a few of them had records of the beauty's blood. She had to understand this thing thoroughly before coming up with a countermeasure. However, just as Han Yunqi's soul was wandering, Zhao Mama knocked on the door. Esteemed Wang Fei, Steward Luo has brought Su Xiaoyu. Zhao Mama knocked a few times, but Han Yunqi did not hear her. She was too engrossed. Granny Zhao, is the Princess Consort asleep? Su Xiaoyu asked in a low voice. When she entered the estate, she was dressed in rags and her hair was unkempt. After being trained by Steward Luo for a few days, she seemed to have become a completely different person. At the age of 7 or 8, her facial features were exquisite and her temperament was clean. If she wasn't wearing the clothes of a servant girl, she would definitely be mistaken for a rich young miss. She just came back not long ago. Zhao Mama was about to knock again, but Su Xiaoyu immediately stopped her. Zhao Mama, if she really is asleep, wouldn't we be disturbing her? Absolutely not. Esteemed Wang Fei's sleep is more important than anything else. You little girl, esteemed Wang Fei didn't save you in vain. Hee hee. Zhao Mama was quite fond of this little girl who acted like an adult. Zhao Mama, what can I do? Just tell me what to do. Su Xiaoyu was very enthusiastic. You should go and rest too. Granny Zhao smiled and went off to do her work. Su Xiaoyu sat at the entrance and quickly noticed that there were many strange plants in the courtyard. She quickly ran over to ask Zhao Mama about them. They are all poisonous, you absolutely cannot touch them. Zhao Mama finally remembered this matter. Actually, the plants in the courtyard were all highly corrosive poisons that Han Yunqi was using to study the poison orchids. She wanted to first figure out how to hybridize them. If she couldn't grow them, then she would ask the Medicine Ghost Valley's Gu Qi Sha. Zhao Mama only knew that these plants were poisonous. As for what kind of poison it was, she didn't know. Oh. Su Xiaoyu nodded. Not long after, Han Yunqi came out of the study and saw Su Xiaoyu sitting at the entrance. She had been too busy and had almost forgotten about this little girl. Little girl, you're here. Han Yunqi asked with a smile. Su Xiaoyu turned around and was pleasantly surprised. Esteemed Wang Fei, you're awake. Do you want to bathe? This servant will help you bathe. Ah. Why would she want to bathe in the middle of the day? Chapter 323. Why bathe? Han Yunxi looked at Su Xiaoyu in confusion. Su Xiaoyu blinked her innocent eyes and replied seriously, "Esteemed Wang Fei, don't you rich people always take a bath when you wake up to maintain your skin?" Han Yunxi smiled bitterly. Who told you that? The older sisters who begged with me said it. They also said that you rich people have to fill the bathtub with flower petals and massage with very expensive essential oils. Su Xiaoyu spoke very seriously, as if she had seen it with her own eyes. Han Yunxi didn't know how to answer her, but she wasn't wrong. Among the upper class of the royal family, not only women, but even men also liked to take baths. If Su Xiaoyu hadn't mentioned it, Han Yunxi would have forgotten that Long Fei Yi had a very luxurious hot spring in his palace. It wasn't something that Su Xiaoyu's bathtub could compare to. I like to take a bath in the evening. Han Yunxi smiled. Su Xiaoyu's eyes flashed with craftiness as she quickly replied, then Xiaoyu will serve esteemed Wang Fei in the evening. Han Yunxi smiled but didn't reply. She hadn't fallen asleep in the study. Instead, she was reading through all the records on Beauty's blood in the detoxification system. The results were disappointing. There weren't many records, and she knew all of it. Beauty's blood was cultivated in a special female body. After taking 300 kinds of slow-acting poisons, the toxins would seep into the blood and cause a qualitative change in the blood. According to normal medical theory, the person whose blood had undergone a qualitative change was basically incurable. However, this matter clearly couldn't be explained by normal medical theory. Han Yunxi sat down on the swing in the courtyard. She pondered whether she should concoct all the slow-acting poisons that Bailey Mingxiang had taken and see the results before continuing her research. She didn't know when Long Fei Yi would return. He should know more about Beauty's blood than she did. Su Xiaoyu followed beside Han Yunxi. Esteemed Wang Fei, Xiao Mama said that the grass in the courtyard is poisonous. Is that true? You don't believe me. Why don't you try it? Han Yunxi grinned. Su Xiaoyu immediately shook her head. I wouldn't dare. That's right. Those things are highly poisonous. Han Yunxi was not joking. If one touched the roots of these plants with their bare hands, their hands would be destroyed. Princess Consort, I won't touch them. I can water them every day. Su Xiaoyu took the initiative. How could Han Yunxi give such a dangerous and important thing to a child? No need, I can take care of myself. Han Yunxi was filled with questions, but Su Xiaoyu asked, Princess Consort, why are you planting these poisonous plants? Children were always curious. However, Su Xiaoyu had been with Steward Luo for so many days. Didn't Steward Luo tell her to watch, listen, and learn less when she was working in the Furong courtyard? Fortunately, this little girl stayed by her side. If she ran into Long Fei Yi one day, she wouldn't have to ask so many questions. Long Fei Yi would definitely make her leave. Children don't need to know so much. Han Yunxi felt that she was still very loving. She specially reminded her, little you, if you meet His Highness in the future, do you know what to do? His Highness Duke of Qin. Su Xiaoyu suddenly became nervous. Of course. His Highness Duke of Qin also lives here. You'll definitely meet him. Han Yunxi smiled. Long Fei Yi was such a cold and aloof man. He wouldn't be so lethal to such a young girl, right? Legend has it that His Highness Duke of Qin is very fierce. Su Xiaoyu said seriously. Han Yunxi nodded seriously, that's right. So, when you see him in the future, don't ask random questions. Do you understand? Su Xiaoyu nodded like she was pounding onions. In the evening, Han Yunxi really did feel an itch in her heart. She wanted to take a bath. It just so happened that Long Fei wasn't in the Fu these days. She could go to the hot springs without any scruples. Zhao Mama, get ready. I want to take a bath. It's a pity that His Highness won't be coming back tonight. Zhao Mama secretly sighed as she prepared things. Su Xiaoyu followed behind her and helped her. Han Yunxi didn't know anything about flower petals or essential oils. In modern times, she would at most take a hot bath in the bathtub at home. It wasn't that she couldn't afford it, but that it took too much time to prepare. Zhao Mama was an old hand. As soon as Han Yunxi arrived at the bedroom, she and Su Xiaoyu came over with a pile of things. When Long Fei wasn't here, the bedroom wasn't locked. However, there were no less than 10 hidden guards around. In reality, none of Long Fei's secrets were hidden in the bedroom. This was just a place where he slept and rested. He hated it when people casually entered. If she wasn't walking with Han Yunxi, it would probably be difficult for Zhao Mama to enter alone, let alone Su Xiaoyu. As soon as Su Xiaoyu entered the bedroom, she was immediately shocked by the luxurious and spacious interior. Although it was dark on both sides and she couldn't see anything clearly, just the towering stone pillars on both sides were enough to make people feel intimidated. This place was filled with His Highness Duke of Qin's noble and inviolable aura. This time, Su Xiaoyu learned her lesson. She walked all the way to the hot spring without saying anything. Zhao Mama handed a large basket of rose petals to Su Xiaoyu to sprinkle in the hot spring. She prepared the essential oils and placed them to the side. There was also a large bath towel and clean clothes. As Su Xiaoyu sprinkled the petals, she stole glances at Han Yunxi as if waiting for something. However, Han Yunxi sat by the side of the hot spring without moving for a long time. Soon, Zhao Mama finished preparing everything. Esteemed Wang Fei, this old servant will wait behind the curtain. Han Yunxi never needed to be served the entire time when she was bathing. Although she was also a woman, she wasn't used to being honest with others. Seeing that Su Xiaoyu was still standing to the side, Zhao Mama said with displeasure, "Little girl, what are you spacing out for?" "I want to serve esteemed Wang Fei," Su Xiaoyu said with a serious face. No matter how one looked at her, she looked simple and honest. "No need, Zhao Mama's here is enough." Han Yunxi waved her hand and prepared to take off her clothes, but Su Xiaoyu stood in place and refused to budge. "That's not how a servant should act. You'll have plenty to serve in the future, so go on out." Han Yunxi felt helpless. It was obvious that this girl wanted to repay her kindness. Zhao Mama didn't think so much and simply dragged Su Xiaoyu out. Let's go. Don't delay any longer." Su Xiaoyu had no choice but to sulkily follow Zhao Mama out. As soon as the curtains were closed, Zhao Mama said in a low voice, "Little you, go tell Chu Shifeng to tell His Highness that esteemed Wang Fei's tired from bathing in her chambers. She wants to sleep here tonight." Su Xiaoyu widened her eyes. "Zhao Mama, you're lying. Don't speak nonsense." Zhao Mama grew fierce. "Esteemed Wang Fei clearly just, I've served esteemed Wang Fei for so long, do you think I don't understand her? Are you going or not?" Zhao Mama asked. But I don't know who Chu Shifeng is. How am I supposed to find him?" Su Xiaoyu was at a loss. Zhao Mama had been so excited that she'd forgotten that this girl had no way of finding Chu Shifeng. Without a choice, she could only go by herself. "Stay on guard and don't wander off, understand?" Zhao Mama said sternly. "On." Su Xiaoyu nodded her head. Zhao Mama was still worried and lowered her voice. "Little girl, I'm not trying to scare you, but if you dare to wander around here, you won't even know how you'll die. Su Xiaoyu was stunned. I don't want to stay here, I'll go find Chu Shifeng. As long as you don't wander off, esteemed Wang Fei's here. What are you afraid of? Zhao Mama was amused. She found it quite interesting to have a little girl as a companion. Su Xiaoyu's face was full of fear as she sat cross-legged beneath the curtains. Zhao Mama, hurry and come back. Seeing this, Zhao Mama set her mind at ease and left cheerfully. But as soon as Zhao Mama left, Su Xiaoyu stood up, her fearful expression long gone. In its place was a calm and collected serenity that didn't fit her age. She cocked her head to listen carefully for movements behind the curtains until she heard the sound of water. After confirming that Han Yunxi was in the pool, she carefully lifted a corner of the curtains. Of course she knew there were guards here, but she also knew that no one but Long Fei Yi would dare to spy on Han Yunxi while she was bathing. Through the cracks, she caught a glimpse of a charming scene. The pool was covered in rose petals like a sea of flowers. Amidst the mist, Han Yunxi's hair was tied up high, making her face look thinner and more delicate than usual. Her entire body was submerged in the water until it reached her chest. As the water rippled, her beautiful collarbones could be vaguely seen. A stunner. Su Xiaoyu gave her a mature evaluation. It's a good thing I came, she thought. If it was Master, would he have a nosebleed? But Master wouldn't be able to get in. Su Xiaoyu stared at Han Yunxi as if trying to find something on her body. Unfortunately, Han Yunxi didn't move much and soon fell asleep by the side of the pool. When Zhao Mama returned, Su Xiaoyu was still sitting cross-legged on the ground with a serious expression like a gatekeeper. Zhao Mama returned disappointed. She hadn't found Chu Shifeng, so her lies couldn't reach His Highness Duke of Qin's ears. You didn't run off, right? Zhao Mama had only asked casually. Anyone who could enter the hibiscus courtyard as a servant usually didn't need to be suspicious. This girl had been frightened by her just then, so she wouldn't run off. I didn't. Su Xiaoyu replied seriously, then asked, Zhao Mama, why did esteemed Wang Fei soak for so long? As they spoke, the sound of water came from behind the curtains. Han Yunxi had risen. Su Xiaoyu's eyes darkened. Damn Zhao Mama, you really came at the wrong time. What a waste of such a good chance. It was easy enough to get Han Yunxi to soak in a bath, but she had no idea how easy it would be to get her to do it Long Fei Yi when he wasn't around. Han Yunxi dressed herself neatly and came out of the room. She felt refreshed after a bath. It had been ages since she'd gone to the Han estate, so she had to go back. Her little must be missing her. Zhao Mama cleaned up the rose petals in the pool as she complained. Where did that damned brat Chu Shifeng run off to at such a crucial time? Chu Shifeng had just returned from Medicine Ghost Valley with a message from His Excellency Pill Fiend. Go back and tell Long Fei Yi to bring his horse over at any time. Chu Shifeng relayed the message to Long Fei Yi, who smiled and said, We'll set out immediately. Chapter 324. At the Medicine Ghost Valley. The air was still filled with the fresh scent of medicinal herbs. A large group of men and women of all ages knelt in front of the courtyard in the middle of the valley. Inside the spacious courtyard, Long Fei was all alone. He was dressed in black robes and had a sword hanging from his waist as he stood with his hands behind his back. His Excellency Pill Fiend, Gu Qi Sha, was sitting on the threshold of the door. His Excellency Pill Fiend, Gu Qi Sha, was dressed in loose black robes that covered him from head to toe. Only his narrow eyes could be seen. The two men faced each other, one sitting and one standing. Long Fei Ye's expression was as cold as ice. His entire body exuded the aura of a powerful ruler. His aura was so strong that no one dared to approach him. Guqi Sha, on the other hand, was indolent and carefree, as if he was sunbathing by the door. If it weren't for his strange black robes, no one would have spared him a second glance. 10 moves. If this prince loses, you can name any conditions you want. If this prince wins, you have to hand over the serpent fruit, said Long Fei Yi. Guqi Sha cackled. He stretched out a bony finger from his robes and shook it lightly. I don't want to play. Long Fei Yi looked at him coldly. Guqi Sha, this prince is already here. What do you mean by this? Guqi Sha had said, bring it on. Was he going to back down at the last minute? Your Highness Duke of Qin, I'm old. I can't fight anymore. Guqi Sha deliberately made his sigh sound strange and unpleasant. The serpent fruit was in Guqi Sha's hands, so Long Fei Yi could only wait patiently. He knew things weren't that simple. Then what do you want? Guqi Sha suddenly chuckled as if he was very happy. I don't want anything. As long as you let me kick you, the serpent fruit is yours. As he spoke, he stood up and stretched out a leg from under his robes. His movements were even more flirtatious than a woman's. His leg was long and well-proportioned, and he wore an extremely expensive pair of gold-threaded boots. It was impossible to see whether the skin on his leg was as wrinkled as his hands, but based on his bones, Pilfine didn't seem like an old man at all. Long Fei Ye's cold gaze shot over. Murderous intent filled the air. What if this prince isn't willing? Guqi Sha chuckled. Scram! The coldness in Long Fei Ye's eyes suddenly turned into killing intent. He drew his sword and slashed at Guqi Sha without another word. Guqi Sha immediately soared into the sky. Below him, more than half of his house had already been destroyed by Long Fei Ye's powerful sword energy. Guqi Sha glanced at him and roared, Long Fei Yi, don't you dare. You have to pay the price for messing with me. Long Fei Ye's awe-inspiring aura was enough to intimidate everything. He then soared into the sky and closed in on Guqi Sha. Guqi Sha dodged again. He took out the serpent fruit from his sleeve and raised it high in the air. Long Fei Yi, if you take another step forward, I guarantee that I'll destroy the serpent fruit. Long Fei Yi finally landed on the roof. Before he could say anything, Guqi Sha said, His Highness Duke of Qin's swordsmanship is truly exceptional. His swordsmanship is indeed exceptional. You still want to waste your breath? Long Fei Ye's patience was limited. No, old man, I'm saying something very important. Guqi Sha was very serious. Your Highness Duke of Qin, as the closed-door disciple of the Kenzo sect head, isn't it a little too shameless to challenge an old man like me, who only knows a little bit of martial arts? At his words, the temperature in the courtyard seemed to drop by a few degrees. Even Chu Shifeng, who was watching from the sidelines, couldn't help but shiver. Although he was His Highness Duke of Qin's personal bodyguard, he still wanted to tell Guqi Sha to run. Is that so? Long Fei's icy voice turned cold and evil as his lips drew up into an icy, bewitching curve. Then your lordship will take a look and see just how old you are, old man. As soon as he finished speaking, he unleashed his sword energy. A ray of light shot out from the blade and landed right in Guqi Sha's eyes. The previously jovial Guqi Sha immediately grew guarded. Of course he couldn't beat Long Fei Yi in a fight. Otherwise, he would have challenged him to a duel long ago. Thus, he turned to flee. Long Fei Yi stood in place as he stared cold Guqi Sha with his dark, penetrating eyes. Guqi Sha had already fled, but he wasn't in a hurry. He raised his sword with both hands and narrowed his eyes before slashing downwards with enough force to split the heavens and earth. His sword chi surged towards Guqi Sha with mountain-toppling momentum. Guqi Sha was hit squarely in the face, causing his black robes to be torn to shreds. His hands were as bony as ever as he lay sprawled on the ground, making it impossible to see his face. Chu Shifeng grew nervous at the sight and rushed over to see Gu Qisha's face. But Long Fei Yi was as calm as ever. His figure flashed before Chu Shifeng and landed by Gu Qisha's side. He pressed his sword against Gu Qisha's back and said, "Old man, do you need me to help you?" Gu Qisha didn't budge, but Long Fei Yi's lips quirked up into a cold sneer. He was about to stab him again when Gu Qisha suddenly turned around and scattered a handful of black powder in his direction. Long Fei Yi was naturally on guard. He backed away, only to see Gu Qisha's face covered by his black mask. Only his eyes were visible. "No need." Gu Qisha chuckled as he turned to flee. Long Fei Yi was about to chase after him when his vision blurred. He'd clearly avoided the black powder, so why was this happening? Could it be poison? But didn't he avoid it too? Chu Shifeng, chase after him. Long Fei Yi said coldly. But Gu Qisha was shouting from afar. "Your Highness Duke of Qin, if you don't treat the poison within a day, this old man promises you'll go blind." Chu Shifeng was alarmed. He knows the poison arts. Chu Shifeng had clearly seen his master avoid the black powder, but he'd still been poisoned. It was obvious that Gu Qisha's poison skills were extraordinary. This fellow from the medical academy actually knew the poison arts. If the medical academy found out, they'd probably never acknowledge him again. Long Fei Yi's eyes were already starting to hurt. He'd been too slow to react just then. He should have stabbed Gu Qisha as soon as he arrived. "Master, we have to go back and find esteemed Wang Fei right now." Chu Shifeng grew anxious. With master and servant speed, it was very, very unlikely that they'd make it back to Tianning's capital city in a day's time to treat Han Yunshi's poison. Long Fei stared at Gu Qisha's retreating form and clenched his fists so tightly that they cracked. "Your lordship will remember this debt." Without further ado, master and servant mounted their horses and galloped towards Tianning's capital city. Gu Qisha secretly followed them all the way to the mouth of the valley, where he stood on a hillside and watched Long Fei Yi's retreating forms with a strange chuckle. "Long Fei Yi," he muttered to himself, "unless you bring Han Yunshi here, you'll never be able to take the serpent fruit away." Late at night the next day, Long Fei Yi hurried back to the Duke of Qin's estate. In the dead of night, even the lights in Han Yunshi's room were extinguished. Time was of the essence, so Long Fei Yi jumped in through the window. The impatient Chu Shifeng almost followed him in, but realized he couldn't and quickly stopped. "Who's there?" Han Yunshi woke up with a start and sat up. "It's me." Long Fei Yi replied as he lit the lanterns. He was about to tell her about the poison when he saw Han Yunshi and gave a start. Although his eyesight was much weaker due to the poison, he could still see her clearly at this close distance. Han Yunshi's long, straight hair hung loosely over her shoulders. Her bare face was pure and innocent, her eyes drowsy. She was dressed in pure white undergarments, the V-shaped collar of her robes hanging loosely half open, revealing a hint of spring in her eyes. Purity and sexiness were perfectly combined on this sleepy woman. Long Fei Yi's gaze grew heated as his throat tightened. For the first time, his self-control began to crumble. Han Yunshi never expected Long Fei Yi to barge in. She was stunned, but soon received a notification from the detox system. "This guy's been poisoned." She panicked so much that she didn't even notice the heat in Long Fei Yi's eyes. She called out his name again. "Long Fei Yi, your eyes have been poisoned." At this time, Long Fei Yi finally recovered from his obsession. A touch of irritation flashed through his heart. He didn't like the feeling of losing control. "Yes, black powder. I avoided it, but I still couldn't escape." He explained concisely. He didn't intend to let Han Yunxi know that he went to the medicine Ghost Valley. It's Ghost Eye Black Powder. Han Yunxi didn't need to activate the detox system to know what kind of poison Long Fei Yi was poisoned with. The poison of Ghost Eye Black Powder was hidden in very fine powder particles. Although it seemed to have been avoided, in fact, it would still be poisoned. However, to be poisoned, one had to be close. Han Yunxi was suspicious. How did Long Fei Yi get poisoned? Who poisoned him? Of course, she didn't have time to ask. If the poison wasn't completely removed in a while, Long Fei Yi would go blind. She hurriedly got off the bed and forgot that she was only wearing a nightgown. She didn't have her usual calmness, authority, and professionalism. Lie down quickly. I'll start the acupuncture immediately. She was anxious. She was afraid that something would happen to Long Fei Yi. Long Fei Yi lay on the bed and slowly closed his eyes. In the whole world, only this woman could make him completely relax his guard. He would leave his most vulnerable eyes to her. Although Han Yunxi was anxious, she was even more careful. As she inserted the needles into the acupoints around the eyes, a black liquid similar to tears slowly flowed out from the corners of Long Fei Yi's eyes. Seeing this, Han Yunxi secretly sighed in relief. She was finally relieved. It's okay. Hearing this, Long Fei Yi wanted to open his eyes. Han Yunxi hurriedly covered his eyes. Don't. Her hand was very soft. It was still warm because she just woke up. His handsome face was as cold as his temperament. Her hand gently covered his eyebrows. One was hot and the other was cold. It gave them a touch that they couldn't ignore even if they wanted to. For a moment, both of them were silent. Neither of them moved. The warmth of Han Yunxi's palm warmed Long Fei Yi's cold eyes. Blood circulated, and the originally tense feeling gradually relaxed. There was an indescribable sense of comfort. He was greedy for this kind of comfort, so he simply stopped moving. Han Yunxi sat beside him. Most of her body was leaning forward. It was rare to see him at such a close distance without him looking at her. She liked this feeling. Her hand was very sore, but she didn't want to move it at all. As she looked at him, her other hand unconsciously reached over and gently stroked his slightly furrowed brows. She wanted to soothe his worries. The room was quiet and warm. Long Fei Yi noticed the small movement between his eyebrows, but he didn't stop it. He only felt that his whole head was relaxed. At this moment, all the responsibilities, scruples, and forbearance that he had endured for more than 10 years were temporarily put down. Note to the readers, the Genius Poison Concubine has a public WeChat account. She will update the story at the same time. Quickly add her and see what surprises there are. Account, Tien Kexia Dufiai. Chapter 325. Long Fei Yi was currently immersed in Han Yunxi's excellent massage when he suddenly heard a rustling sound from the side of his waist. Was he pressing down on something? Although he enjoyed Han Yunxi's gentle strokes between his brows, he didn't want to interrupt this rare moment of Ningjing. But the thing by his waist was truly annoying. It was fine if it moved, but once it did, it kept twisting and turning. Long Fei Yi really couldn't lie down. As someone who was obsessed with cleanliness, he had very high standards for his bed. There's something on your bed. Long Fei Yi's unhappy voice broke the warmth of the room. His hand reached out and immediately grabbed a furry thing. What else could it be but Lil Thing? Lil Thing hadn't slept much these past few days. It had snuck into the palace in the middle of the night to steal things and was currently sleeping soundly. Even though Long Fei Yi had arrived and was being pressed down by Long Fei Yi, it was still in a daze. When Long Fei lifted it up high, it lazily opened one of its sleepy eyes to see a handsome face before it. Why did Mama Yunqi's face change? Lil Thing opened its other eye to take a closer look and immediately saw Long Fei Ye's cold face. Cheap! A shrill shriek echoed throughout the Duke of Qin's estate. Lil Thing's drooping fur stood on end. Too frightening. Long Fei Ye's icy face was very frightening to begin with, but now his eyes were closed and bleeding black blood. You scared this rat baby to death. Before Lil Thing's shrieks had even ended, Long Fei Yi casually flung it towards the window. Unfortunately, Han Yunqi's window was too small and Long Fei Ye's eyes were closed, so he missed. Lil Thing hit the windowsill and landed with a thump. But as soon as it hit the ground, it scrambled to its feet and climbed onto the windowsill to jump down. Han Yunqi was dumbfounded. Why was this little thing so useless? Why was it afraid of Long Fei Yi? Couldn't it transform into a super big squirrel? Let's see how Long Fei Yi is going to throw it out. Sigh, having such a pet was really embarrassing for the owner. Han Yunqi was still complaining when Long Fei Yi questioned, why do you put everything on the bed? Don't you find it dirty? How can you put everything up here? Only you and the little thing have slept on this bed before. Fortunately, Han Yunqi's voice was very low. Otherwise, if Long Fei found out that his woman had compared him to a rat, Lil Thing would probably suffer a calamity. Long Fei Yi was not used to not hearing Han Yunqi's reply or seeing her expression. He subconsciously wanted to open his eyes, but Han Yunqi quickly stopped him. Don't, you have to close your eyes until dawn. There will be more toxins coming out later. This time, she did not cover his eyes. Instead, she took her own handkerchief and carefully wiped the black poison off his face. Long Fei Yi obediently did not open his eyes. He asked, how long until dawn? There are still 4 hours left. All right, Han Yunqi secretly hoped that the sun would rise a little later. Actually, there was only 2 more hours until the sun rose. She did not know why she kept this guy for 2 more hours, but she was a little reluctant to let him go. Long Fei Yi did not speak again and allowed Han Yunqi to gently wipe his face. Your Highness, let me wipe your face for you. She had just called him Long Fei Yi by his full name, but now she unconsciously called him Your Highness. Han Yunqi did not notice it, but Long Fei Yi did. He responded with a soft sound and did not say anything else. With Long Fei Ye's permission, Han Yunqi eagerly went to fetch water and wrung a towel. The magnificent and unbending goddess had instantly turned into a little maid. Would the men who adored her feel dejected when they saw this? Taking advantage of Long Fei Ye's closed eyes, Han Yunqi boldly observed his face. This was not the first time she had looked at him up close, but it was the first time she had looked at him so seriously and for so long. She discovered that his sharp eyebrows were extremely handsome, his eyelashes were very long, his nose bridge was ridiculously high, and his lips. As soon as she saw his lips, she unconsciously thought of what had happened before. As she stared and stared, Han Yunqi felt like she was dreaming. Everything felt so surreal. She gently wiped his face, from his handsome eyebrows to his sexy lips. She did not notice that Long Fei Ye's eyes were not completely closed. While she was carefully wiping his face, he was also carefully looking at her up close. He looked at her dainty face, looked at her beautiful eyes that seemed to be smiling yet not smiling, and saw the unconcealable adoration in her eyes. Han Yunqi, why did this prince allow you to adore me? Why did it have to be you? After wiping his face, Han Yunqi sat at the side and watched over him. Seeing that Long Fei Yi was not moving, she carefully probed, Your Highness, are you asleep? Long Fei Yi did not reply, so Han Yunqi asked again, Your Highness. Long Fei Yi still did not move. Earlier, she could see that he was travel-worn and seemed very tired. Could it be that he had really fallen asleep? Han Yunxi carefully covered Long Fei Yi with the quilt, then sat cross-legged at the side to watch over him. However, not long after, she could no longer sit still. She leaned over and laid down beside him, propping up her chin with both hands as she looked at him. Towards this guy, she didn't know which one she admired, worshipped, admired, or liked more. If she could clearly explain why she liked him, then perhaps it wouldn't be called love, but rather a motive. Ever since she received an explanation about Duan Miao's matter, Han Yunxi had already stepped onto the path of no return. Liking someone was not a shameful thing, so of course she had to openly like him. Long Fei Yi, I don't care how many steps you take in 100 steps. In any case, I will keep walking forward, until I stand in front of you. She softly muttered. Unexpectedly, Long Fei Yi suddenly spoke up, what did you say? Han Yunxi was frightened. This guy actually didn't sleep. What did you say? Long Fei Yi asked again. No, nothing. Alright, the current Han Yunxi was just a coward who had the guts to make a decision, but didn't have the guts to express her feelings. She was so glad that she didn't do anything out of line just now. Otherwise, it would have been so embarrassing. Whether or not Long Fei Yi heard her just now, only he knew. Even heaven and earth didn't know. He didn't continue to harp on it, but only asked mildly, aren't you sleepy? I'm not sleepy. Go ahead and sleep. How could Han Yunxi be sleepy? Unexpectedly, Long Fei Yi moved closer to the bed and patted the empty space beside him. Lie down. Han Yunxi's heartbeat suddenly sped up, thumping uncontrollably. What was he trying to do? Lie down for a while. I want to talk to you, Long Fei Yi said mildly. Cough, cough. At this moment, a certain woman who was blushing finally realized that she was overthinking. However, she was still very nervous when she was asked to lie down beside him. The empty space was very big, but she lay down very carefully, lying on her back like him. Her body was very, very tense. The distance between the two of them was enough to put down a bowl of water. As soon as she lay down, he opened his mouth. Did you use medicine on Bailey Mingxiang? I did. If nothing unexpected happens, I'll be able to produce Beauty's blood by this year, Han Yunxi answered honestly. What do you mean by nothing unexpected? Bailey Mingxiang's safety. Han Yunxi had always been strict. Don't worry. General Bailey's residence is even more strictly guarded than here. She won't cause any trouble, Long Fei Yi said mildly. Han Yunxi finally understood why a woman who was supposed to be at the prime of her life was so low-key and quiet. Han Yunxi didn't plan to tell Long Fei Yi that she was trying to save Bailey Mingxiang. Your Highness, where did your poisonous eyes come from? Han Yunxi had always been curious about this matter. I accidentally got poisoned during a fight. Long Fei Yi casually changed the topic. Did that gentleman from the Shadow Clan come by? If he did, I would have told you long ago. Han Yunxi had been waiting for that white-robed gentleman this entire time. He'd said that he'd come, and that he'd answer her questions the next time he came. Although Mute Granny's fate was unknown, Han Yunxi was already 70 to 80% sure that her father was from the poison sect. She was even more curious about why the Shadow Clan was protecting her. Between her father and Lady Tianqin, who was related to Western Qin's imperial family. What was the relationship between Western Qin's imperial family and the poison sect? Han Yunxi, if you really are a descendant of Western Qin's imperial family, you, Long Fei Yi trailed off, but Han Yunxi didn't notice anything amiss. She teased, then wouldn't you have profited by marrying me? Long Fei Yi slowly opened his eyes, which were filled with worry. Because of the poison, his eyes were bloodshot, making him look like he was carrying the weight of the entire world on his shoulders. Long Fei, even you have worries. Even so, he smiled as he answered Han Yunxi's question. Han Yunxi, you were the one who married me. Him marrying her was supposed to be one thing, but when it came to the two of them, it had become two different things. She really was the one who had married him. She'd kicked the sedan door open herself. If Long Fei hadn't been smiling as he said this, Han Yunxi might have sensed that there was more to his words. However, Long Fei's teasing tone made Han Yunxi treat it as a joke. Then you've profited even more, she said cheerfully. Her nervousness from before had gradually relaxed. Perhaps. As Long Fei spoke, he wrapped one arm around her neck and the other around her, pulling her into his embrace and tucking her in. Sleep, this prince is tired. His domineering masculine aura immediately enveloped her, leaving Han Yunxi with nowhere to run. This wasn't the first time she'd been so close to him, but it was the first time she'd laid down so close to him. In that instant, she suddenly felt as if his world had overlapped with hers. So close, so close. So this was what it felt like to share a bed with him. She was filled with his scent, so blissful that words couldn't describe it. Han Yunxi's eyes opened wide. The nerves that had just relaxed tightened once again and her body couldn't help turning stiff again. Long Fei seemed like he was truly tired. He leaned against her ear and said in a soft and tired voice, "Be good, relax. This king will just hug you for a bit." His gentle voice seemed to have a magical power that slowly made Han Yunxi loosen up. She put down all her defenses and calmly hid in his embrace. She felt like there was an unbreakable mountain in her world. She really liked this feeling of security. But, Long Fei, what's wrong with you today? You've never been tired before, so what's wrong? Long Fei had truly fallen asleep, but Han Yunxi was very awake. She didn't dare move at all, afraid that she would wake him up. She had said 2 more hours, so he could sleep a bit longer. However, as soon as the sun rose, Su Xiaoyu's voice sounded out. "Princess Consort, wake up." Chapter 326. Su Xiaoyu might be young, but her voice wasn't soft. She was only halfway up the stairs when Han Yunxi's door was still shut, but she could still hear her voice. "Who is it?" Long Fei immediately woke up. "The little girl we saved. She's called Su Xiaoyu," Han Yunxi replied honestly. After investigating Su Xiaoyu's background, Chu Shifeng should have told Long Fei about it, but he'd been too busy to do so. Long Fei released Han Yunxi and rose to his feet. Han Yunxi quickly got off the bed. Su Xiaoyu had already reached the door. "Esteemed Wang Fei, it's time to get up. Your servant's here to brew you some tea." Han Yunxi always woke up early, so she should have been drinking tea in the courtyard by now. Of course, Su Xiaoyu had no idea that Long Fei was here, but Han Yunxi felt gloomy at the well-intentioned interruption. This lass really knows how to pick the right time. I'll have to make it clear later that she's not allowed to come up here without my orders. Take it to the courtyard and prepare extra cups, Han Yunxi instructed from the other side of the door. Su Xiaoyu froze at the door and asked suspiciously, "Prepare an extra cup? Who's that?" She didn't know how to react. She'd wanted to use esteemed Wang Fei's late wake-up time to see if she could help her change her clothes, but now she didn't have the chance. Su Xiaoyu could only resentfully descend the stairs. But when she saw Long Fei and Han Yunxi emerge together, she couldn't help but shiver. It's the Duke of Qin. Rumors had it that Han Yunxi was doted on, so Su Xiaoyu had been scared witless when she first arrived. She was afraid that she'd have to face the Duke of Qin all the time, but it wasn't until she reached Leisurely Cloud Pavilion that she realized the Duke of Qin and Han Yunxi were living in separate rooms. When did the Duke of Qin arrive? Did he spend the night upstairs? Perhaps because of her guilty conscience, Su Xiaoyu almost broke the cup. Fortunately, she caught it in time. As soon as Long Fei stepped out of the door, he shot a cold gaze at Su Xiaoyu. He had a panoramic view of her every move. Naturally, he also noticed her nervousness. Su Xiaoyu was flustered, but she was well trained after all. She cleverly made the best of her mistake. Her hand trembled again, and the teacup fell to the ground. Bang! Afterwards, she hastily fell to her knees, not even daring to raise her head. Your Highness Duke of Qin, please spare me. Spare my life. This servant didn't do it on purpose. Your Highness Duke of Qin, please spare my life. Long Fei looked at her and did not say anything. Han Yunxi quickly went forward. Get up. Hurry up and tidy up. It's fine. Su Xiaoyu timidly looked up at Han Yunxi and shook her head, indicating that she didn't dare. I said it's fine, so it's fine. You can withdraw. Usually, whenever Long Fei was mentioned, Su Xiaoyu would always be very afraid, so Han Yunxi didn't think too much of it. If Su Xiaoyu acted normal right now, Han Yunxi would be suspicious. As soon as she heard the two words, withdraw, Su Xiaoyu spat out in relief. Although she stood up, she still bent over, not daring to turn around. Facing Han Yunxi and Long Fei, she cautiously retreated. However, Long Fei suddenly said, stop. Su Xiaoyu's legs seemed to turn to jelly. She knelt down with a thump and sobbed, esteemed Wang Fei, save me. Han Yunxi was both angry and amused. The little thing was already very embarrassing. How could there be someone more embarrassing than her? Your Highness, this girl's heard of your temper. She's afraid of you, Han Yunxi said with a smile. What, is your lordship's temper bad? Long Fei asked. Su Xiaoyu couldn't stop trembling. Her head was almost pressed against the grass, but she didn't dare to make a sound. By now, Zhao Mama had arrived as well. As soon as she saw Long Fei, she was bewildered. Your Highness, you came so early. Han Yunxi didn't explain, so Long Fei wouldn't. Su Xiaoyu kept her head bowed, too afraid to speak. Zhao Mama finally noticed Su Xiaoyu kneeling on the side and laughed out loud. Your Highness, this child can't take a fright. It's best if you don't make things difficult for her. Zhao Mama cleaned up the teacups and steeped some fresh green tea. Your Highness, esteemed Wang Fei, please sit. Then she whispered into Long Fei's ear, Master, Chu Shifeng's already checked this girl. She can be used. Long Fei finally sat down. Zhao Mama quickly waved at Su Xiaoyu to dismiss her. But Long Fei only said cold, have her serve me. Zhao Mama was in a difficult position. Her eyes drifted towards Han Yunxi. Give her some time to get used to it. Qinxie will serve you. Han Yunxi half joked, half coaxing. She had no idea why Long Fei was so serious about a little girl. Long Fei was about to speak when the sound of a cat meowing came from the bushes. Meow, everyone was astonished. Whose cat was that? Han Yunxi knitted her brows at Zhao Mama, who immediately waved her hands. We don't. As she spoke, a cat poked its head out of the grass as if it was starving. It meowed pitifully at the crowd. This time, everyone was dumbfounded. Wasn't this the Persian cat that Emperor Tianhui had given to the Empress Dowager as a birthday gift? Why was it here? Lil Thing. Come out. Han Yunxi shouted. Who else could do such a thing besides Lil Thing? No one knew where Lil Thing had gone, so Han Yunxi quickly went upstairs to search. She rummaged through chests and cupboards, but didn't find Lil Thing. Instead, she found a chest full of treasures. It was full of the Empress Dowager's birthday gifts, including Qinhuang Rong's Moon Night Pearl and the Crown Prince's Snow Ganoderma. Han Yunxi couldn't help but burst into laughter. She didn't know what to say. I'll give Lil Thing 32 likes. Beautifully done. The Empress Dowager must be depressed to death these days. Seeing the chest full of treasures, Long Fei Ye's lips twitched into a half-smile. Naturally, he could keep these treasures, but that Persian cat had to be sent away. If someone were to find out about it, the crime would not be just an ordinary one. Although Emperor Tianhui had given way about the Western Mountains, that didn't mean he and the Empress Dowager would drop the matter. Once they got hold of something that could be used against them, they wouldn't go easy on the culprit. After all, Tianning was still Emperor Tianhui's world. He only dreaded Long Fei Yi. Throughout history, how many of those who held power over the world, whose achievements surpassed their masters and whose wealth rivaled that of a nation's? Long Fei Yi quickly had his guards send the Persian cat away. As for the treasures, Han Yunxi generously left them for Lil Thing. As long as it didn't eat them, they were all hers. Their morning tea was interrupted by this incident. Zhao Mama seized the chance to take Su Xiaoyu away. Long Fei Yi didn't ask any questions, but told Han Yunxi, in the future, tell her not to wake you up so early. Han Yunxi gave a start before bursting into laughter. So that's why he was unhappy. Seeing Han Yunxi laugh, Long Fei Yi only pretended not to notice, his expression cold. He should be the embarrassed one, but Han Yunxi ended up feeling embarrassed instead. Qinxia obeys, she replied seriously. Still, she had no idea that Long Fei Yi had found Chu Shifeng that very day to ask him about Su Xiaoyu's origins. Just like that, the events at the Western Mountains passed. Han Yunxi would occasionally visit the Imperial Physician Courtyard when she needed medicinal ingredients. With her status and Gu Beiyue's presence, no one dared to object no matter how many ingredients she took. Besides cultivating the highly corrosive poisonous plants in the courtyard, Han Yunxi spent all her time researching Beauty's blood. She went to General Bailey's estate a few times, but Bailey Mingxiang was the same as ever. Once, Bailey Mingxiang's poison flared up again. There was nothing she could do to help, so she simply returned home. Today, she was about to go to General Bailey's estate again when someone from the Imperial Physician Courtyard arrived. They said someone had died in the palace from poison and wanted her to take a look. Han Yunxi knew that she couldn't refuse an invitation from the Imperial Physician Courtyard, rather than a direct summons from the palace. But she was puzzled. What kind of poison victim needed her to take a look? On the way, she asked around and was shocked to find out that the bold noble consort Yun had died from poison. The Empress Dowager wanted her to help find the culprit. Emperor Tianhui had 4 noble consorts: Noble Consort Xiao, Noble Consort Xue, Noble Consort Ning, and Noble Consort Yun. Noble Consort Xiao was the second imperial son's Mufei and the daughter of the Prime Minister of the Left. Noble Consort Xue was a concubine's daughter from the imperial uncle's estate and counted as the empress's sister. Noble Consort Ning was the younger sister of one of the 3 cavalry generals. Only Noble Consort Yun had the lowest birth and was only the daughter of a provincial official. However, Noble Consort Yun had always been more favored than Noble Consort Xue and Noble Consort Ning. That was because she was bold enough to say and do things that others didn't dare. Her uniqueness had attracted Emperor Tianhui's attention, causing her to jump multiple ranks from Kai Ren to Noble Consort Yun. At the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet, Xiao Jingxin publicly supported the Long Fei Yi, causing the most favored noble consort Xiao to lose all favor overnight. Meanwhile, noble consort Yun was in full swing. As soon as Han Yunxi heard that noble consort Yun had died from poison, the first person she thought of was noble consort Xiao. She was the biggest suspect. Of course, she knew things weren't that simple. If things were that simple, this wouldn't be a harem affair. She should rejoice that Long Fei Yi hadn't taken any concubines. Otherwise, she'd have to face a terrifying struggle for favor as well. Han Yunxi entered the palace and was about to change into a sedan chair when the second imperial son and the prime minister of the left, Xiao Jingxin, walked towards her. Esteemed Wang Fei, Yuru was wrongly accused. Esteemed Wang Fei, for His Highness's sake, you must seek justice for Yuru. Xiao Jingxin's face was full of anxiety. Yuru was noble consort Zhao's maiden name. Didn't they say they were investigating? The results came out so quickly. Han Yunxi asked in bewilderment. Esteemed Wang Fei, they found poison in Yuru's palace. One of her servant girls also confessed to the crime. We have all the witnesses and evidence. With Xiao Jingxin's influence in court and the Duke of Qin's backing, Emperor Tianhui couldn't touch him for now. But he couldn't bear to see his only daughter banished to the cold palace. He'd already given orders over and over, but Yuru had still been careless enough to be ambushed by a spy. The evidence had been planted, and the witness was none other than the spy. After the Empress lost her mind, the Empress Dowager regained control of the harem. With evidence and witnesses, how could the Empress Dowager let Yuru off so easily? The Empress Dowager had long wanted to deal with the Xiao clan while the second imperial son and the crown prince vied for favor. Add that to the birthday banquet incident, and the Empress Dowager was fretting over the lack of a chance to take revenge. Moreover, noble consort Yun was dead and noble consort Xiao was banished to the cold palace, leaving only noble consort Xue and noble consort Ning. Noble consort Ning was indifferent by nature and worshipped Buddha all year round. She didn't fight for favor, so noble consort Xue was the only one left with any real power. Now that the Empress had gone mad, plenty of people were eyeing the throne. Naturally, the Empress Dowager would find a way to help her own daughter onto the throne. Naturally, Han Yunxi was well aware of these complicated relationships as well. Just as Han Yunxi was about to speak, the second imperial prince hastily added, Esteemed Wang Fei, nothing can happen to my Mu Fei. If anything happens to my Mu Fei, His Highness will definitely punish you. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.